We're going to call this meeting to order. If everyone could please stand for a moment of silent meditation or prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Pizzo, would you like to comment on our meeting, please?
Certainly. We apologize to the public for being a few minutes late. The council met in executive session immediately prior to this evening's meeting from 6:30 up until the point where the councilman and the mayor came out to the dais. Present for the executive session were the 5 members of council, the mayor, the director of public safety, the township labor attorney, Neil Morris, and me. A matter of personnel was discussed. No official action was taken during the executive session, and none is required this evening as a result of the executive session.
Thank you, sir. Number 2 on the agenda, do we have any public comment on any agenda items? Seeing no one come forward. Number 3 on the agenda, approval of council minutes for meeting date September 17th, 2018. Do we have any additions or corrections? If not, a motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion that we approve as presented.
Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second that.
Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ayes have it. 5-0. Number 4 on the agenda, Bensalem Police Department Awards Recognition presentations. Mr. Director?
Thank you, Mr. President, Mayor.
Mr. Pizzo, are there any items that are continued, have to be continued from tonight's agenda?
Item number 11 on your agenda, the Land Development Extension Agreement for Somerton Valley Homes. As the minutes that you approved earlier this evening reflect, you approved that extension agreement at a prior meeting. So that's already been taken care of. So we don't need to act on it again tonight. So no action is necessary, it's already been approved. On item 15, which is the ordinance to rezone the St. Catherine Drexel property, as council is aware, this is the ordinance that the township prepared to rezone the property prior to the sisters making us aware of who the potential buyer of the property is. Since that time, township has met with the potential buyer of the property, and as again I believe council is aware, the potential buyer has submitted a proposed rezoning ordinance to the township for what's being referred to as an MUR, mixed-use residential district. That ordinance recently was presented to the Township Planning Commission, and in light of the response that the developer received in front of the Planning Commission, they're taking a step back, reassessing their vision for the repurposing of the property. Also, I've been told by both their attorney and by the principal of Aquinas Realty that they're reaching out to adjacent property owners to discuss their plans for the site as well. So with all of that as background, it's the recommendation of the administration that, again, we do want to keep this item current, if you will, in the event that the township does need to move forward with it. But while the developer is continuing to make its efforts, the administration would recommend that the ordinance be tabled to a date certain perhaps another 60 days into the future.
We're going to take this into next year then.
January of next year would probably be a good target date, yes.
We don't have the dates for the January meetings yet, so,
Your reorganization meeting would be Monday, the 7th. You don't normally conduct business there, so the following meeting would be January the
14th.
14th. I don't know if we will be celebrating the Dr. King holiday. That would be the following, so the 14th would probably be the date.
Okay, do we have a motion on the floor to continue to January the 14th?
I'll put that on the motion.
Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second.
Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ayes have it, 5-0. Mr. Peisman?
And then item 16, essentially a similar story. The township, as you know, has been working on the Street Road Corridor Town Center overlay. At the same time, the township has been moving forward on its efforts. The potential buyer of the Armstrong Middle School property has been moving forward with its own efforts for the redevelopment of that site, and is speaking with the township administration, and I believe had recently shown to members of council some concepts for the future development of that site, together with the potential zoning changes that they might need to effectuate their vision for that redevelopment. In light of the fact that things are still being hashed out and worked through, the administration would make the same recommendation that we table this ordinance to a date certain of January 14, while efforts continue on parallel tracks for the redevelopment of Street Road.
Okay, do we have a motion on the floor to continue this till the January 14th?
I'll make a motion, we move it to January 14th, 2019.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any question on the motion?
Yeah, we recently, saw those concept plans with the developer. Is this moving forward or not? I know the sale is approved by the court, and my understanding is the developer is paying a significant amount of money every month just to keep this in limbo. Are they going to submit the plans? Do we know? Have the plans been submitted?
This is not the developer's ordinance, this is our ordinance for the Street Road
Okay,
Corridor.
so then in that
From Knights
case,
Road on.
are we reliant on that developer and those plans to
That-
do this? Yes or no? I
That
don't.
developer hasn't put any plans into the township, he has
Nothing has been formally submitted to the township.
No
not a
engineered
sketch
plans,
plan,
no
not a land
anything.
Is the
development.
township waiting for those plans to be submitted to do this overlay?
no.
So I guess my question is, what are we waiting for? And is this affecting the redevelopment of that site at all in the near term?
We're waiting on him to put his plans in and put his things in, he has given
Right,
us
I understand that, but is that related to this overlay or not?
They were talking about doing separate
Potentially, in that this overlay, if adopted, would encompass the Armstrong Middle School property. So to the extent that the developer is looking at potential development of the site that would require zoning provisions that either differ from what the township has in this overlay ordinance, or would be something that the developer wants to, as in the case of Catherine Drexel, submit a zoning ordinance that would apply solely to its property. The developer is still working through that decision, as I understand it, as to which way they're going to go. In the meantime, there's not much practicality, since the Armstrong piece would be sort of the linchpin of this entire area. If it's ultimately going to be the township's overlay that's going to carry the day, then, we'll continue to work with the developer where we can to see that those things mesh. On the other hand, if what the developer is looking for is just too far afield from what the township envisions for the development of the entire corridor, then the developer can move on his own with the submission of an ordinance that would apply solely to his property.
So it sounds like we're trying to work in tandem with the developer for something that works for the benefit of the whole township.
That's correct. And if that can be achieved, great, and if not, then again, things are moving at least on parallel tracks, and the developer will ultimately make a business decision as to what he or it wants to do.
Okay, so I guess my next question is, if the developer submits the plan, say, tomorrow, hypothetically, us tabling this to January, does that delay that project from moving forward?
I would say no, because there's no way if the developer walked into the township tomorrow with a fully engineered set of plans, which we all know is not,
That's why I'm
which is
hypothetical.
entirely
I just wanna make
unlikely.
sure.
But even if they did, there's really no way that that plan would be ready for all of you to consider by the first meeting in January.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, a second. Do we have any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ayes have it, 5-0. Anything else, Mr. Pizzo?
That's everything of which I'm aware.
Okay, thank you. Number 5 on the agenda, Mayor's recommendation regarding the Director of Building and Planning position. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I think you all have in front of you a resume, and I also gave you of what we've been doing for the last 8 months and how we got to where we are today. Did everybody see that? Everybody have it? So respectfully, I give you the gentleman that after all this, and I think we finally got, is Ken Farrell. And at the same time, if you read the memo, we advertised many, many times all over and all different kind of places where that would be, building officials, the association, code officials, all the things where you would advertise for that. And obviously the have to live here in Bensalem was always, the residency was always something, was a drawback. And if you see in there, they advertised with that, they got many more, without that, they got many more applicants. So having gone through the process and everything, the gentleman I'm presenting you today with, I'm asking for a waiver. So he doesn't have to live here in Bensalem after going through this process for 8 months. And hopefully you'll see his resume, he meets all the qualifications, and respectfully ask for your approval.
I think his resume that he submitted is very impressive. I think he is well qualified for this particular job in many, many aspects. And eventually, if you have other discussion, Mr. Chairman, I would be happy to put that in the form of a motion when you're ready for that.
Okay, you can put it in form of a motion. We'll get a second, then we'll open up for questions.
Okay, and I would like to make a motion that we accept the recommendation of Mr. Kenneth Farrell for the position recommended on this memorandum from Mayor Joseph DiGirolamo dated November 7th, 2018, in the Building and Planning. And I would also ask for a waiver to be put into place for his residency. And that would be my motion.
Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, any question on the motion?
I have several questions. Mr. Mayor, your letter said that 2 of the applicants were Bensalem residents. What requirements did they not meet, those 2 Bensalem residents?
The requirements be the director to have all of the knowledge, the past knowledge certifications and all of that, to be able to do that.
Okay, so would that include the certifications that Mr. Farrell stated in his letter he doesn't have at the time as of
No,
September 7th?
That's correct, but he will have that.
He will have them. So
Absolutely.
do you know, does he have them now, or is he
No, he
still?
does not. He's
But
in the process.
he'll have them by the end of the year?
And, the gentleman that fills in there, Bob Heil, that's filling in with us, certainly at the highest standards. He's only here a few days a week. Helped us in this process, and he knows that he already has that knowledge for that qualification. It's just a matter of doing it. So, and if he didn't have it, then at the time, we couldn't do it.
Right.
But he will get that, absolutely.
Is Mr. Farrell here tonight that we can ask him questions?
He is not.
He's not. Do you know, is he intending to resign from his job as a principal of his company?
He is, and also, you notice he's had a political office.
Yes.
And I told him it would be in best interest to resign from that also. I see that as a conflict, and he agrees.
Yeah,
And has he agreed?
Not to interrupt, but I did call the mayor's office to make sure that he was going to resign from that position before I would.
Oh, I think
consider it.
that's imperative,
Okay, so he did confirm that he is planning on resigning?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he said that in his resume, didn't he? Didn't he say that in the resume?
Can we,
I thought he said that in the resume, he's going to resign.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, can we make that in the form of a motion too and add that
Amendment to what?
as far as his?
His appointment would be conditional
On the
upon
resignation.
him resigning?
His political appointment?
That's up to council. I have no problem with it.
I don't have a problem in adding to the resolution.
Yeah, as long as
I mean,
Mr.
to the,
Pizzo says it's
motion?
legal, I'll do it, you know. Are we allowed to do that, Mr. Pizzo?
Well, we can
My
make
my
it.
concern, the reason why I'm asking is he's not here this evening to at least swear to that, so.
I don't believe it would be problematic, and if it raises an issue, then
Okay, well,
Mr.
add it.
Farrell will raise it with the mayor, and the
Eddie, you
mayor
gonna
can
change
come
your
back
motion?
to you. But
I did.
again, I believe the
I'll
gentleman's
change my
already
second.
told the mayor that he's ready and willing.
Let me make clear what you're asking. You're asking in a resolution to make sure that he resigns his position
Political
as
His political position, his elected
as a
position.
councilman,
Yeah.
and you're asking that he, what was the second issue that you?
Resigning
That's it?
from his company.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, okay.
I didn't make that part of the motion.
No, I don't think
I
that was
think just
part
the
of it.
political
Just the
one should be
political.
on there, yeah.
The political would be I think the conflict of
That's
interest.
the
Absolutely.
linchpin, yeah.
I wouldn't let him come if he did.
I called right away against that, too.
Ed amended his agenda, or his motion. Joe amended his
I amended
second.
my second to include that he resigns from his political position.
Okay.
His elected
You have something else?
position.
Oh, I still have a few more questions. His resume states that, he's currently Vice President of Engineering Services. His certifications say civil engineer. Is him being an engineer one of the qualifications needed?
It's
this
not a
position?
qualification.
Okay.
It's an addition to that.
I'm just checking.
Yeah.
Because he's not a licensed engineer, and I want to make sure that that's not the issue. Okay. I think that's all I have for right now.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
I just have one, Mayor. And you spoke to him as far as resigning from his current employment. It seems like he's done a lot where he's at, and he's grown his department, so I'm just kind of curious to know his reasoning behind wanting to leave that company where it seems pretty established to coming over here.
In our conversations with him, this is what he's always wanted to do. He wants to switch gears and go into this and the rest of his career. He's not real old. I don't know how old he is. I didn't
That's
ask
fine.
him that question.
Yep.
But when he indicated to me that he just wanted, this is what he wanted to do, when we saw his opportunity to do that, he wanted to take advantage of it. So
Understood.
this is what he wants to do.
Okay, and then just one clarification for his certifications. Do you have an idea, I knew Mr. Sloan had said the end of the year. Do you have any idea of when he's going to attain them?
I would think that once he's confirmed here, that within, he already knows what to do. It's just a matter of the application, and I think you have to do a couple days, you have to be there.
I think he said he already started per the letter.
Yeah, he has done most of, when I talked to Bob Heil in our office, he told me that he's absolutely ready. I mean, it's only a matter of getting a cert.
Yeah, well, he spells it out here in the letter. I'm currently in the process of obtaining my building code official, my certified zoning officer certifications.
Yes, getting the certifications from state L&I is a process. There's a certain amount of course hours that you have to accomplish, and then they administer the test, and the test is scheduled at whatever intervals the state schedules it. So it's not unlike most other licensing that the state does. There's a period of time where classes that in some cases are required, in some cases not. In this case, there are classes required, and then the state administers the test at whatever point in time it does, similar to when the CPA test is offered or the bar exam is offered. So that's a factor as well. So he's working around the state's timetable.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
I'm just going to make one last comment. Just from the cover letter, and not going through the entire resume, from his cover letter, and this is from Mr. Farrell, says, "I have over 30 years of experience in land use, land development, zoning planning, and overall 30 years of knowledge in land planning and land development process." Skipping to another paragraph, he is the Vice President of the Hatfield Borough Council, Secretary of the Board of Directors of North Penn Water Authority, serving his positions. He's also Councilman of the Year for the Pennsylvania State Association of Boroughs. And that's just a few items I'm going to bring up relative to his experience, other than of course, his resume that was very enumerating. Okay?
Okay, no.
Incidentally, let me add something, not to bore us with this, but he knows that he has to be here evenings, he knows he has to be here for urgencies, he knows all of that, and he was involved, the political thing, he knows he has to get rid of. One of the things I told him he didn't have to get rid of, he's really heavily involved with the Scouts. So I said, no, you can continue to do the Scouts, which I don't think anybody would deprive somebody from that.
I don't know about that.
If we get to that point, then we got real problems, so.
I certainly don't have a problem with him staying involved with the Scouts. I am concerned that it sounds like he has no intention of becoming a Bensalem resident. And I understand that you can request a waiver, but
At this particular time, he has one child still in school.
Mhm.
And he said to me at that time, after he finishes that, I think he's a senior, or she, I don't remember which it was, in high school. And that, he would certainly consider moving. At this time, the family's set there, and he didn't want to move right now.
But the whole purpose of us just 2 weeks ago putting the ordinance in place was to allow that. So if your personal opinion is that,
allow him
I
to request a
understand it.
waiver, yes.
Right. And you said that be fair to everybody involved. We were fair to the
Yep.
other departments, so to be fair, it's hard to find somebody this qualified for this job.
I understand
And
that.
there were other people considered that weren't qualified, but, that was the whole point.
Okay, I'm going to call the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
I vote aye.
Abstentions? Passes 3-0.
Because of his residency yet, or for some other reason?
I didn't hear.
I didn't hear it either.
That was an aye. It was an aye against. When I said it for and then
You were an
against,
aye
it was
against?
two, so.
Okay.
You voted against it, right?
No, he said
Oh,
aye.
you voted for it?
He's voted for
Okay.
it.
All right,
voted
so
against
it's 4-1-0.
You started
I
the
thought you were
aye.
voting a nay. Yeah.
That's why bad
It was a late aye.
It was late aye.
It was like you said
4-1.
before, an aye for no hesitation. I know, exactly.
All
I
right,
agree with you.
number
That's what I
6 on the agenda, approval
That's what I
of
said.
signing of the record plans for Ivy State Road Property LLC, 3750 State Road, tax parcel 2-79-9-4, 2-79-9-5, 2-79-10, 2-79-9-6, and 2-80-28. Mr. Gans.
Yes, you recall we had a development some time ago at 3750 State Road, which encompassed 5 lots. In order to improve the situation regarding zoning, they have decided to consolidate those 5 lots into 1 lot. We were asking, and this plan depicts that. We were asking you to sign this so it may be recorded at the Bucks County Recorder of Deeds.
Okay, do we have a motion on the floor?
I'll make a motion that we approve and sign the record plan to be filed for Ivy State Road property as presented.
Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Any questions on the motion?
Yes, I'd like to formally object to the fact that council has been in the habit of signing these plans prior to council meetings before it comes up for a vote. Any signing of these plans should be done after we vote on it. And if that means staying 5 minutes to sign 5 copies, I don't care if it's 30 copies of these plans, that's what we should do. That's our job.
Well taken. We have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Vote aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ayes have it, 5-0. Number 7 on the agenda, consideration of a resolution regarding the destruction of documents pertaining to the Building and Planning Department. Mr. Pizzo, are you handling this one?
I would be happy to. As is the case from time to time, various departments within the township government find themselves with filing cabinets and the like that begin to overflow with documents that are beginning to get somewhat long in tooth. The State Historical and Musician Commission has propounded standards for the disposition and destruction of public records. The township follows those standards and follows those policies and procedures in periodically disposing of such documents. Before you this evening is a resolution that would authorize the destruction of a number of documents from the Township Building and Planning Department. The law pertaining to the destruction of these records does require the approval of council before the staff can go about disposing and destroying the records. So attached to the resolution are 2 documents. One is a memorandum from the acting director of building and planning advising that the township staff within the building and planning department has scanned all of the documents to be destroyed, and the list of documents that have been scanned and for which your approval of their destruction is being requested are attached to the resolution. The resolution is in a form acceptable for your consideration and approval this evening.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a motion on the resolution?
I put in the form of a resolution that we accept it as presented.
Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second.
Any questions on the motion?
Yeah, the interoffice memorandum has a date of April 10, 2017, but it marked that it was received October 26. Something's not adding up here, because Mr. Heil wasn't the interim director of building and planning last April, a year and a half ago.
I believe that's just a typographical error, Mr. Sloan. If you look at the list, you'll see that the list encompasses documents from April 10, 2017 through October 25, 2018. So I'm going to believe that whoever typed the memorandum for the director put in the April 10 date instead of the October 25, 2018 date, which would be a day before it was received by the municipal clerk on October 26, 2018. In any event, the list of documents attached, which are the scanned files documents from April 10, 2017 through October 25, 2018, are the documents that the department is asking that you approve be destroyed.
Okay, and these are all now available electronically?
That's my understanding, sir, yes.
And how are they to be destroyed?
Beats me. I don't know if they have a bonfire, if they shred them,
I
if
guess
they
the
put them in
question
the
is,
dumpster, I don't know.
if there's PPI, private and personal information, within any of the documents, I would hope that these are being destroyed in an appropriate manner.
I believe that they have to destroy them according to what the state law is saying that they have to do.
Okay.
So that, and that's the way we do it to protect everybody, yeah.
That's fine.
I'm sure that, actually, I don't know.
I know the staff follows the policy.
Right.
There's no improper.
I'm familiar with the military protocol. It's not what we're doing here in the township building. That's why I'm asking.
Okay, do we have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any other questions?
Where are these documents stored, Mr. Pizzo? Right now, extra file cabinets, are they here at the township building?
At the moment, they are in the Department of Building and Planning.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Sure. All in favor?
But
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ayes have it, 5-0. Number 8 on the agenda, consideration of a resolution for 537 PA Sewage Facility Act, planning revision for new land development of parcel of land identified as Ivy State Road Properties LLC. Mr. Gans, are you handling this one? All right, Mr. Pizzo?
You're too kind, Mr. Gantz. As council is asked to do from time to time, this is a somewhat ministerial and housekeeping duty of yours. The Ivy State Road property land development was previously approved by this board back in September of this year. This evening, you just approved the lot consolidation plan for it. One of the conditions of approval, as is true of every land development you approve, is that the developer obtain the necessary water and sewer approvals for the project. The first step in that process for the developer is for the developer to obtain from the council a planning module approval, which is this resolution before you this evening on the standard DEP form. This will begin the process for the developer to then get the sewage facilities planning module approval from the Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority, who is the township's retail sewer provider, from the City of Philadelphia Water Department, who treats the sewage that's generated from the township, and ultimately from the Department of Environmental Protection. So again, this is a standard form that you're asked to approve routinely from time to time. It is in a form acceptable for your consideration and approval this evening, if you are collectively of a mind to do so.
Thank you, sir. A motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution as presented.
Do you have a second on the motion?
I'll second it.
Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ayes have it, 5-0. Number 9 on the agenda, consideration of preliminary land development plan, applicant 2600 Rock Pile LLC, Timothy Ribas, location 2600 State Road, proposed use open air storage, zoning classification R55 Riverfront Revitalization District, tax parcel 2-65-21. Mr. Hecker?
Members of council, good evening. Tom Hecker on behalf of the applicant. With me this evening, Tim Ribas and his dad Walt Ribas, Bensalem residents, who are the principals in the applicant limited liability company. Also with me is Tim Bowles, who is our civil engineering consultant. The application before you this evening relates to an approximate 20-acre parcel located at 2600 State Road. This property has a bit of a history, which really is what brings us before council this evening. Apparently, in the early part of the 20th century, the property was used by a chemical manufacturing company, and the property, a large portion of the property, was used as a dumping ground for a product known as gypsum, along with other fill and waste product. The property has been undergoing Act 2 evaluation with DEP, and has been approved for water quality and soil. So the remediation cleanup is ongoing. But as you can imagine, we believe that the area of fill is about 11, 12 acres. It's pretty extensive and a very expensive process. My clients are undertaking that, and it looks like it's going to continue to be an extensive undertaking. So they have the concept of being able to use the property for the storage of equipment, which they can lease space for while they continued with the cleanup of the property. So we took this application to the zoning hearing board back in 2017 for the proposed use and received approval from the zoning hearing board for the use, subject to two conditions. One was the limitation that this would be a temporary use, not to exceed 5 years, and depending upon the extensive nature of the ongoing cleanup, we'd have the ability to come back and ask for additional time. The second thing, which is important to the zoning hearing board and to the township, is that any development of the property, even as proposed, would need to incorporate some stormwater management facilities. And we have, in fact, done that with the plan that is before council this evening. This plan has been reviewed by the township engineer. It has gone before the Township Planning Commission, who has recommended approval. So we're here tonight for your consideration of the preliminary plan so that they can continue forward with the cleanup process as well as generate some revenue to help offset the expense. So with that brief overview, I'd like to introduce Tim Bowles, our engineer, to highlight the plan with council, and then we'll get into some specifics. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name's Tim Bowles. I'm with Bowles Smythe Associates, civil engineering firm in Philadelphia. As Tom had explained, the site is covered with mounds of waste calcium sulfide or synthetic gypsum material, which we would like to repurpose on the site to essentially use as a pavement-based material across the site to stabilize the area so it can be used for the equipment storage purpose that it was approved for zoning. The plan involves bringing in a crusher and excavating the material, which occupies a little more than the front third of the site in pretty substantial mounds. It will be excavated and crushed and spread over probably the front half of the site at least, maybe a little farther into the back. In addition to crushing that material and spreading it as a base paving, we'll also be topping that with a stone material to cap it off and regrading basically the entire site to balance the earthwork on the site. The middle portion of the site, where there's another reddish blob, has other materials, mostly construction debris, concrete, brick bats. I think there's some roofing material that was identified in the Act 2 report. That material will also be incorporated into the site, grading. So as Tom had mentioned, the Act 2 process was completed. It was actually completed in 2001. It's not very recent. It's taken a little time to get this off the ground and get a plan to move forward with this. So DEP had approved the Act 2 for groundwater and soils in 2001, and we're operating under that Act 2 plan. The intent is to keep all the materials on the site in order to have some beneficial value from it, which in this case we can achieve given the nature of the synthetic gypsum material that we're planning on reusing. Can you go to sheet 2.2? This is the proposed site plan, site grading plan, which shows that there is a large stormwater basin in the southerly corner of the site along State Road. The basin will capture all runoff from the site, from the regraded portions of the site. Everything will drain into that basin before discharging out onto State Road, as it currently does. The entire site currently, through overland flow, slopes towards and drains onto State Road. The basin will capture all of the runoff from the site before discharging it, with substantial reductions in the rate of discharge to State Road. I guess that's it. We have received the benefit of a review letter by the township engineer. If it's okay, Mr. President, I'll address the comments.
Yes.
Thank you. I have before me a review letter issued by O'Donnell Nakarada dated October 10th, 2018, which basically in section B describes the project as Tim has just outlined it to council. Chapter 232 zoning is section C, and as I noted, as is noted in Mr. Gann's report, we did receive the variance from the zoning hearing board for the proposed use that has just been described. As also noted, the condition regarding stormwater management facility, which up to this point has not existed on the site, was included as a condition of the approval. In section D, there are a handful of items under land development. For purposes of tonight's meeting, I will tell you the items which will comply, but I can also tell you that our engineer has already revised the plans. They've recently been submitted, but unfortunately we don't have the opportunity as an ongoing process to have a review on the revised plan. So we're working off of this review letter. So I would advise you that with regard to the record plan, item number 1D1, that is a will comply, as is item number 2 regarding the landscape plan. Item 3 references the requirements for curb and sidewalk, which has not been shown on the plan. We're requesting a waiver of that with regard to the sidewalk. There are no sidewalks on that side of Bristol Pike, I'm sorry, State Road, and we recognize that it would be subject to a fee in lieu under the township ordinances. The curbing is also a waiver request. That presents a different challenge, and I'd like to have Tim come up and explain the issue with curbing and stormwater on that portion of State Road. Tim, if you will.
Yeah, the waiver is being requested for curb and sidewalk primarily because of the drainage difficulties associated with installing curb and sidewalk in that section of State Road where there is no drainage system to connect pipes or install storm drainage inlets and connect them into pipes. In order to convey the water along State Road, swales are used on that side of the road in particular, the north side of State Road, to convey the water in a north-easterly direction. And we explored a number of ways to manage the drainage along State Road with curb and sidewalk, and it seems impractical without a drainage system to connect into and comply with PennDOT's gutter spread regulations for the highway occupancy permit. And that's the reason for the waiver request primarily.
So what effectively you're saying, if I understand it correctly, is that we can't install the curbing without stormwater management, and there's no stormwater management system to connect to that would adequately handle it.
Correct.
We'll get into, in a minute or two, the stormwater comments of the engineer's review letter, but my understanding is you have more than adequately provided for stormwater management on the site.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, the basin manages all the runoff from the site and releases it to State Road in a reduced rate and volume.
Thank you.
Excuse me, when you use the term releases it to State Road, do you mean to a swale along State Road
Yes.
or actually on State Road?
Yes, it still drains, it currently drains onto State Road and it will continue, but after passing through the
To a
basin.
swale next to State Road or over State Road, on top of State Road?
No, a swale along State Road.
Right.
And the swale on State Road along the property frontage will be regraded to bring it up to current standard.
Okay, because I understand people aren't engineers, but you're saying onto State Road. The general public's going to think it just goes on to State Road.
No, it will drain into the
A
swale.
swale along State Road.
It will drain into the swale along the northerly side of State Road and continue as it currently does
in a northeasterly direction.
Okay.
The next item is item 4 under section D with regard to the HDPE pipe. It's proposed instead of an RCP under the driveway. Tim, you explain the rationale for proposing that, and technically that would require a waiver.
Yes, the reason for proposing the HDPE pipe in lieu of concrete pipe is that the soils on the site, as identified in the Soil Conservation Services Manual, identifies some of these soils as potentially corrosive to concrete and reinforcing that would be in a concrete pipe. So to mitigate that, a thermoplastic pipe would not be subject to the same corrosive action. Thank you.
Ron, are you in agreement with that?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Item 6 deals with the any seat collars to be provided. That's a will comply. 7 is a PennDOT highway occupancy permit is obviously a will comply. 8 deals with the requirement for the Conservation District approval. Has that been, the NPDES has been approved?
No, it has not.
It has not, but it's been submitted.
There was a preliminary submitted where
Okay.
we're reacting.
Did you do number 5 was a will comply too?
Item number 5 is a will comply, yes. So item 8 is a will comply, obviously, with regard to the Conservation District, and 9 dealing with the NPDES permit. So these are outside agency permits.
Yeah, we have an extensive coordination process that we have to go through with DEP because this is an Act 2 site. So we're prepared to initiate that process.
And the last item under section D is item number 10. Township traffic engineer has reviewed the plan. We've also submitted a revised plan to the traffic engineer for their further consideration. So that's a will comply item. Section E is the stormwater management section of the ordinance, and rarely have I seen these kinds of comments noting that the rate of runoff after development will be significantly less than the rate prior to development. And if you look at the chart that Mr. Gans has prepared with regard to the pre-development versus post-development, you'll see substantial reductions throughout that chart. It's also noted that the basin storage volume is an excellent 30.121 cubic feet, and that the proposed stormwater management system exceeds the township requirements. So recognizing, what we're dealing with, the applicant, I think, has gone above and beyond the township requirements to address stormwater management. So I do not believe that there are any outstanding issues.
Have you addressed the, is number 2 there, it says proposed state road swale grade. We were concerned that there'll be ponding in the proposed driveway, because it was mentioned in Mr. Gantz's letter, it's mentioned in the traffic letter, and it's mentioned also in Bucks County Planning. All 3 people are concerned about.
Yeah, well, the
Water in
swale
the
along State Road was probably originally adequately sized to convey the water that flowed along State Road. It has since been silted in, and our plan along this property frontage proposes to regrade the entire swale for the full length of the property. As we get to the easterly end, though, it will essentially dead end into the either smaller than normally expected swale, or a swale that's been silted in. So there will be at that northerly corner some ponding. Now, we believe that we can in the field make adjustments to the grading to help relieve that, but the swale for the full frontage of the property will have the necessary capacity to convey the water to that point.
Including keeping it off your driveway where they're entering, right?
Yes, and we've added a trench drain across the driveway, which is sized to convey all the water across the driveway itself.
Okay.
Yeah, our concern is to make sure that there's not a big runoff on the state road. There's already a flooding problem on State Road down there, and if this is going to go into that, it's only going to make it worse, and we're not looking to make a situation worse with something like this. So that's why all the concerns are here about the water running onto State Road and how it's going to be handled.
Understood.
Yeah.
The drainage patterns will not be significantly altered at all. In fact, they'll be improved by the fact that we'll be reducing the rate of runoff. So there will be less water in this portion of State Road that will be flooding onto the road in the very heavy storms. Ultimately, the same amount of water will leave the site over time and wind up downslope in the same place, but it'll occur over a longer period.
Right, it's not just going to go right out when there's
Right.
and add to the flood. It's going to be held and released on a slower portion with your swale and with your basin, so
Right,
that'll
and the
be.
way the site is being graded, the entire used portion of the site drains to the basin. Only the perimeter slopes will slope away off-site without passing through the basin.
Thank you.
Do you think it's what you call your sub that you put the gypsum board that you're going to spread across the site and use for, for storage on top of, construction storage and stuff? And then that's a temporary usage for 5 years. Is that useful for the afterlife after 5 years?
It
Is
will-
that okay to have that kind of stuff?
Well, it will
Buried
be,
across
after
the
we
site?
process it, we intend to process it with a crusher and turn it into essentially a gravel, which would be like a stone subbase that you would use on any site. And yes, it would be, right now, it's hardened from when it was originally deposited, hardened, and it's now like concrete.
Yeah.
So it's not really, we can't easily grade it or move it. We have to excavate it and crush it in order to spread it and level it so we can actually use the site.
Is this going to be crushed on the site, or is
Yes,
it?
it'll be crushed on the site. The intent is to remove nothing except, any trash or other regulated waste from the site. Everything else will remain on the site
With
and be
this,
processed on
with
site.
this crushing, is that going to leave dust in the air and things in the air for the people that live down there and the other businesses down there?
Well, the crushing operation will manage the dust. Crushers have ways of, usually with water spray, to douse the material as it rolls through the crusher and control the dust. And when it's spread on the site, it will also need to be sprayed to keep the dust down.
Mr. Cans, are you in agreement with this? Concern?
As long as they have facilities there at all times to do that, it will, it's just spray. They have water trucks and they spray it as they're using it, so the dust doesn't fly into the air.
Understood. I'm just looking out for the residents down there that are living in Waterside now, and the other residents that are in Echo Beach and the Cornwall Heights section. One time they tried to bring a plan in there to do this kind of stuff. I know this is on a smaller level, but it still can't do damage or harm to the people that live in the area. So that's my concern with that. And okay, because that's going to be something that's going to be very important for the residents.
And this will be part of our management program that will be reviewed by both the Conservation District and DEP as part of our NPDES permit process.
How long do you think this is going to take to do what needs to be done on this property?
I would guess, say 3 months to do the crushing operation.
Right, so it shouldn't go past the 5 years that's being asked, is what I'm
We're
asking.
hoping to put it to some useful purpose before the approval expires. We want to get this done in the early part of next year so that it will be operational for equipment storage beyond that point.
My concern is that I don't want it to go so slow that 5 years goes up. Now we have to extend it another 5 years, and another 5 years, and another 5 years. That's my concern, so that's why I'm asking. So you're telling me you think it's going to be done in a lot shorter period of time than the
Yes,
5 years?
we hope to get it done beginning of next year.
Thank you.
What
Starting-
type of equipment is going to be stored on there?
Mostly probably tractor trailers and construction equipment. There are no potential leaseholders yet.
My question would be also, this is probably Mr. Pizzo, or your attorney too, but my question would be, if it's a temporary 5 years, is that what the zoning board approved, the temporary zoning thing for 5 years that they can come and extend if they want it? Is that what I'm hearing?
The language of the zoning decision is that the applicant was granted a variance from section 232-271 of the zoning ordinance for the use of the property for temporary storage of commercial vehicles, tractors, trailers, and construction equipment, subject to the condition that the temporary storage use of the property shall not exceed a term of 5 years, with an option to request an extension of the proposed use. And secondly, the applicant has to install stormwater management facilities in connection with any land alteration to which the facilities are subject, and those stormwater management facilities are subject to the approval of the township engineer.
So say if the storage use ended up not being a positive thing in that entire area and it started to regenerate itself with the riverfront plans, 8 years from now, can we stop it from being a storage facility? Can we pull the zoning and have it not be that?
After the 5-year term is over,
Right.
the applicant has to go back to the zoning hearing board and ask the zoning hearing board to extend the variance beyond that 5-year period. Would you agree with that, Mr. Hecker?
Yes, I agree.
And so they'd be accepted or declined at that time?
Correct.
Depending on how it's going, I guess.
That's
Okay,
correct.
I just want to make sure it wasn't something, just some
Yeah.
vague 5-year.
Back to my question. The vehicles are going to be stored there, but you have no contracts or no indication as to where they're going to come from? I mean, you must have some idea where they're going, who your client's going to be.
We've been in contact with Joe Atkinson, who owned the property next to us. Timothy Rybas, R-Y-B-A-S. We've been dealing with Joe Atkinson. He's been a consultant for us. His family's been in the business for probably since the 20s, and he's very confident that he can supply us with leases or licensees in the property.
So you'd be tractor trailers you're storing there or something like that? Like the backs of
Again,
them?
we're not sure the end user, but it could be construction equipment. Solder crane is expressed moving over. We've had plenty of people come to us. We've just never put anything.
It's going to be equipment and trucks and storage?
Correct.
Okay.
And it's only going to be your
The
use.
plan is to put, there's the Leyland Cypress on, I'm sure you're familiar with State Road, the Leyland Cypress that run down and pretty much block the whole frontage, so it won't be visible. And then the plan is to place other Leyland Cypress or something similar on the top of the berm there to further hide all of the vehicles.
How is it going to be protected from the residents in terms of,
Putting
I
up,
guess,
you said a berm with trees, I think
well,
you said.
berm, but I mean, just trees on State Road?
We actually have some pictures we can show you that when we first started this process before we went to the zoning hearing board, planted a nice buffer across the front of the property, which have matured in the last couple of years. So, and you'll see it's pretty dense already, and they'll continue to get even
Yeah, so
more
it's there
dense.
already, yeah.
Okay, and when you're setting that up, the next question is, how toxic is this material?
Gypsum board.
Well, it's been evaluated and tested. Gypsum itself is not toxic, but because of the process that it was a residue from, there are low levels of lead in some of the material.
Would you bring the easel up?
Other than that,
Bring the easel up.
it's not toxic.
I have a question. Mr. Gantz, this might be a question for you. This property is lightly wooded. Do we know how much the increase of the impervious space would be with this project?
It's basically a stone surface, is that correct?
The gypsum will essentially be a permeable gravel material, and it will be topped with other gravel materials. The only impervious proposed on the site is the driveway connecting to State Road, which is, 100 feet long.
But
All of the remainder of the site will be...
But correct me if I'm wrong, and that's fine, I get that, but correct me if I'm wrong, but we are removing trees and other wooded parts of that property then to replace it with this gravel material that we're speaking of, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
The site does have some trees on it. The site is entirely disturbed. The front portion is this dense concrete-like gypsum material. The middle portion has other construction waste materials. And the rear had been, from what we're told, we know that the site was excavated and stripped. We understand for soil that was used as embankment in I-95, So the site's been entirely disturbed, and the trees that are out there have been reviewed. There were no special protected trees there, and they're, for the most part, not desirable trees.
But roughly 2/3 of the property, if you look just from a satellite picture view, is covered in trees and wooded area. And so you're going
Some
to
trees
replace
and
that with
shrubbery.
what looks like about 80% of the property will be essentially a parking lot
Yeah.
for construction equipment.
And again, the goal here is to, and this goes to the future use, the waste materials that are on the site are an impediment to any viable use on the property now. The intent of this process is to deal with that material now so that it will be viable for this proposed use now, short-term use, and for uses in the future. And this synthetic gypsum that covers a large portion of the site is an impediment to any development until it's dealt with.
So,
Hold on a second.
so
You have to
why,
use the microphone to speak, because you can take it right off the thing and take it with you, but let's get Mr. Sloan's question answered.
so why not incorporate this into a larger development project, say as a phase 1? Let's break it up, while we're doing that, we'll use it for on-site storage while we're in this process. And then go on to phase 2, which is actually develop the site for use. I mean, this is zoned R55, it's the Riverfront Revitalization Project. I thought that we're all of the mind that, we're going to redevelop this waterfront property for the future of the township. This is not redeveloping it for the future of the township. I understand that you're gonna remediate what's there, but what's after that? That doesn't sound like, number one, it's part of your plan. Number two, you don't really care. You're just trying to make a quick buck on cleaning this up. So what are the long-term plans, and do you have any?
Yes. So currently, it's got a non-residential Act 2 clearance, so it's able to have industrial use. The hope is to generate some income on the property and then be able to get a residential use. And as the Riverfront Revitalization, which we were heavily involved with Matt Takita when he was still board there, the hope is to then start putting businesses along State Road. And I know that you guys want to run a road for the trucking going through the middle of the property, which we're all for. That sort of, we're more than happy to move forward with the Riverfront Revitalization, but the way the property currently stands, it's only zoned for non-residential, and we frankly can't afford to just go through and clean it up without any other sort of income coming from the property.
And this is a 5-year thing, so
And that was the basis
Clean it
for
up
the
there.
5-year limitation.
short stuff for
Sure,
5
but
years.
in 5 years,
Well, we can turn them down in 5 years.
the
No, we can't. Zoning.
the five of
Zoning-
us
well,
can't
zoning
do
can,
anything,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, zoning can.
So
Yeah, yeah.
we have a decision tonight of whether
Yeah.
or not we want to run the gamble of somebody else doing their job in 5 years, or do we want to do our job tonight?
Mr. Ecker, what's the impervious surface on that property now?
Do we know, Tim?
To the extent that the gypsum, synthetic gypsum is impervious, that would be the only impervious on the site.
And how much is it gonna be when you're done? That's why I'm asking you, what's the impervious now, what's it gonna be when you're
Several
completed?
thousand square feet for that driveway in the front.
Mr. Gans, I'll ask you the question. Impervious surface, what is it now?
Right now, it would be about a third of the site where the gypsum is.
And what is it
Because it's
gonna
solid
be?
like concrete.
What is it gonna be when they turn around?
It'll be much less because all that gypsum will be crushed into gravel.
But they're taking down trees and gonna extend the impervious surface with the
Just
with the gravel,
Just the driveway.
just the driveway.
I'm saying the gravel's not impervious,
Right, it's not, but
But
it
a lot
will
of
be.
that,
but it won't be green space.
it won't
No,
be.
won't be green space.
I think their goal is to develop this as a regular
Well,
development site on R55.
the R55 zoning on this property means absolutely nothing to the township unless the gypsum is dealt with. And this plan has been developed to deal with the gypsum and make this a productive property so that at some point in time it can be developed. Right now, because of the condition of the property, you can't build anything residential on it. It doesn't have residential clearance. So this is, you're right, it's really the first phase. It's the first phase to accommodate the cleanup and move eventually to R55, but there isn't anybody out there, my clients included, are going to take a chance on developing it under R55 with the problem, with the condition that the property is currently in. So this is the way to
get to that point ultimately.
I don't believe that side of the river is, that part of State Road is going to be residential. I believe that that's going to be more of a commercial
Businesses
shopping
and stuff,
centers
yeah.
to.
Okay.
Restaurants.
Things like that.
And it may not be achievable because of the nature of this material to get a residential.
Well, that's what I was asking.
Right.
Well, but again, so anyone that's gonna come in to develop this site has to remediate this gypsum. So all you're offering to do is remediate the gypsum and then make a quick buck and walk away without any idea of the township of what this is going to be down the road.
Let me just address that, and you can answer it. It's not a question of quick profit. I mean, you've heard that they have been at this for a while, that they've dealt with DEP on soil conditions, on water condition. They spent a lot of money to get to that point in time. And the idea is to try to recoup some money to continue with this cleanup plan to make it a productive property, whether it's residential, combination of commercial, residential, all commercial, I don't know. But you can't, even if these guys were not the builders, you can't market this to a builder and say, oh, and by the way, you know, you've got $1 million, $2 million worth of cleanup to deal with. You know, it's just not going to happen. Not going to happen.
Absolutely, we're doing it right now with Armstrong Middle School, which is a former, used to be the high school of Bensalem Township, laced with asbestos, and any developer who looked at that property understood that that is laced with asbestos, and that's the first thing that has to be done is remediation of the asbestos.
Well, the building.
The building, right,
not the
so,
ground.
again, doesn't matter, it's
Well,
something on the
matters it's 20
site,
acres.
a large site that has remediation issues, and that has to be considered as part of the development project. And we've all seen plans that incorporate that, remediation as part of the development project.
Well, I think Waterside would be a better example, actually, because that was
Sure.
actually a brownfield. But
There you go, there's another one.
Mr. Gantz, I had a question. Their engineer answered it, but I wanted you to answer it. Not that I don't believe him, but, and this jumps on Jesse's point. When they make it gravel, and I know they make gravel out of building material, they put it on the sides of roads and stuff, you know, for highways. They crush it, right. So when they crush it, after the 5 years or 8 years, they ask for an extension, get 8 years, is the space now usable for regular use, like
Regular
whether it be
development.
commercial development?
I would say as long as it's not governed by the Act 2, as far as residential versus industrial.
No, I'm just saying, as far as the material itself, can be, yeah, so it'll be useful for further development. It won't be like people will have to deal with that again in a gravel form.
Yeah, it's been my understanding that this is phase 1. I mean, they have a phase 2 and 3 are for develop the site.
Correct.
With real development,
That is correct.
not storing trailers for the rest of it.
Right, and this is, and you just didn't acquire this property, right? You've had
No,
this
my
property.
grandfather bought it back in the 60s.
Right, I know.
It's been in the family this long.
So it's not a quick deal for you.
No, we're trying to just do something with it. We've been here forever. We're not, and we want to see it developed, and we have zero desire of selling it. We want to develop the property and keep it in the family and get leases for any commercial businesses, anything that happens. We hope that the Riverfront Revitalization happens. It's only going to help us out. Not.
After the gypsum board would be gravelled and put on the ground, what would it take for that to become a R55 residential-friendly property?
Well, most likely under Act 2 regulations, it would have to be removed from the site to become residential. It could be commercial, but it's not cleared for residential use under its Act 2.
And again, I don't think that's going to be a residential side of it.
But it can be commercial.
My concern
It
is
could be
that,
commercial, yes.
my concern is that we do it for 5 years, and at the end of 5 years, we do it for another 5 years, and then another 5 years, and it's not going to help with the original plan for this development here. And I guess what we're looking to you guys is for some guidance as to, you know, is this not good? There's a couple things. One, the thing I worry about is, will there be any work on trailers and changing of oils and all kinds of fluids and stuff that we have to
Welding
worry
and
about
stuff.
runoff with this? This is a concern. And, I mean, what do you have to offer us to say, yeah, we're going to do something with this and not just keep coming back for
Extension after
extension?
extension.
And then you have something in the middle of something you're trying to do that's really nice now is full of trailers and construction equipment.
I understand your concern, but as I previously stated, putting an actual commercial building on there would be a lot more income for us than leasing it out to tractor trailer storage. This is a minimum, most passive use that we could come up with as an interim condition until the Riverfront Revitalization program starts to happen. We don't know what else to do with the property in the meantime.
Understood, but we're doing our due diligence here to
No,
ask the right questions,
yeah,
to make sure that,
We
you know,
would love to see that whole project happen. I mean, we were pretty involved in that taquito.
On the future plan, which I saw at some point, it was very futuristic, you know, but, so I don't know what will probably happen in your lifetime, but the road that they proposed that may go through to continue through to almost New York
Correct, I
Avenue to
think so,
Station Avenue, would that road, the way it was proposed for the future, be on the back of your property, or some of your property would be necessary? And what commitment have you made to cooperate if that's the case?
I mean, we've made no written commitment, but we would love to see a road go through it that gives us commercial access on those more sides of
Okay,
the
so
property.
yeah, it would make your property worth it.
Again, it only makes sense for us.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think the
It's a
road
long
runs
state road, they
roughly
want
through
to-
the middle third of the site,
Correct.
the rear third.
What would be your best-case scenario in 5 years for you?
Best case, see state roads start to get developed, the road go through the middle of the site, that way if trucking is still happening, that can stay back there, and we can start putting commercial buildings along State Road. Another possibility is, as we get income, we'd like to look at remediating it for residential use. And
Just two
in the
things.
process of grinding up the gypsum and only spreading it so that it's a foot and a third thick, I think is what we were able to come up with. It makes it a lot more accessible and easy to remediate at that point.
So that still will have to be remediated even after you crush it and
If
5
you
years
wanna
goes
go
down?
If they want residential.
Right,
For
okay.
residential, it would need
So,
to be removed from
I'm
the
just
site.
I'm just struggling with the idea of, we already know, to touch on Mr. Polari's issue, we already know that we have a lot of water issues down there on State Road. And I'm just struggling with the fact that we're going to remove a significant piece of wooded land there. Regardless if we consider it impervious or not, we're putting some type of gravel or stone there, which I feel is going to increase our water flow down there. And if we're only going to rely on swales and a basin down at the bottom end of that corner, then, guys, you're going to have to convince me otherwise. I would expect some type of significant water management system along State Road, along your property, based off of the fact that you are removing a good piece of wooded land.
We can only control with regard to this property, but having reviewed these engineering letters for a long, long time, I've never seen one that says that it'll reduce the rate of runoff significantly less than the rate prior to development. And if you look at that chart, the reductions in the rate are 50%, in some cases more than 50%. That's number one. Number two, the storage capacity now on site, when this is developed, is noted as an excellent over 30,121 cubic feet, which far exceeds the township ordinance. So that takes care of the on-site. To the extent that that on-site in any way is now running free flow on the state road, it's got to help. Number two, as Tim has indicated, we can control that swale along the frontage of the property. It's silted up, it's going to be regraded. And the only potential issue left is going to be what happens at the end of the property where we don't control. We don't have ownership rights, we don't have easement. It's really a PennDOT issue. What happens there? There are some ideas. We get out there in the field, we'll be able to address it, subject to the satisfaction of the engineer. So the only thing that this plan can do, based on what I'm reading here, is improve the situation if council approves it. Otherwise, things are going to stay the same.
Where do these numbers come from, Mr. Heckler? I mean, have we had a scenario where we're replacing wooded land with this type of gravel in a sense that we're going to say that we're going to reduce the water runoff?
Well, more than the front third of the site is covered with the compacted gypsum material, which has steep slopes on it. So it's a hard, not entirely impervious, but nearly impervious material that has a high rate of runoff. So when we level that off, it lengthens the amount of time that it takes for the water to run off the site. And the same thing applies through much of the rest of the site. The crushed gravelly gypsum material will provide storage of its own within it, which will allow some percolation in the soil. That's not even accounted for in the way the calculations are run. But just based on the regrading of the site and the character of the site, it yields, the analysis yields runoff rates as shown in that report.
Thank you.
I also believe that when we do that road in the back, that's going to keep a lot of traffic off of State Road. It's going to be able to take it right to Street Road and go to 95 or wherever. I would imagine that we'd have to put some basins and stuff in there, Ron, to make this acceptable, which also should help with the water runoff.
It would be a full highway construction, curbing, stormwater sewer systems,
Right.
basins, it would all be constructed as any new PennDOT road would be constructed.
So that'll help with some of the water runoff with that also, so.
Why not remediate it now?
We don't have the money.
Remediating it now for residential means taking it off-site,
Yep.
which is, it's an astronomical cost.
It may not be-
And the purpose
may
of
not
the
end up being
action process
residential
is
either.
to allow the site to be returned to some use with its, waste materials on the site without the cost of having to dispose them off-site.
I mean, that's a sensible standpoint to look at it that way. I mean, Waterside, when they did theirs, they had to get their approvals before they spent the money to remediate a property that they're not going to be able to use. So, I mean, I understand that point. It's just, to me, it's the long term. How, 5 years, then another 5 years, then another 5 years. It just takes away from the plan and what the vision of that riverfront is supposed to be. And I guess I'm just saying that to you, as a family, I know you've been long-term residents of Bensalem, your family's been here forever, but this is something that's been very, very, very important, and we're not looking to make it a 5-year for 100 years of trailer rental and things of that nature.
And I believe you're well-intentioned today. I don't doubt your sincerity on that, and, your desire to see that area redeveloped. I think we all agree with that. But I gotta agree with Mr. Polari in that 5 years is too long for, I think, what we would like to see happen in this district.
I'd like you to assure me that it's only gonna be the 5 years and no longer than the 5 years.
Or that.
Yes.
Well, you are in control of that, or I should say the township is,
Well, the
because,
zoning hearing board is not council.
well, the
so if
zoning
we
hearing board,
approve this today,
but
we
if,
have nothing to say.
I
5 years.
suspect, knowing the way the township is operated, that if 5 years came and went, nothing has changed, and we're going back to the zoning hearing board for another 5-year extension, the township would have something to say about that to the zoning hearing board. So you do have that protection. And you also have what was described earlier by my client in response to your question. They expect to start this process, sometime in the spring to get going on this thing. So they're not going to wait the 5 years.
Mr. Hecker, we understand that, we appreciate that, but long-term, you're looking at this and you're saying, okay, we're if we're willing to work with you here, what's to say it's not going to be 5 years? And if the township gets in and says, we're against this, you go to court, it's ultimately up to the judge to decide whether they continue going or not. It's not up to the township. The final say is up to a judge, not up to the township. So when we're looking at this, we're looking at it for the betterment of the corridor, the people that live in the corridor, the people that travel the corridor. So when we're bringing this up, it's not for any other reason but to know what's going to happen, what's going to go. Would a bank be nice on that facility? Would a restaurant be nice on that facility? These are the kinds of things that need to fit into that program. And I guess what we're saying to you is that's what we'd like to see down the road. So I don't want to see 5 years and then 5 years from now.
No, we don't want to see that either. We feel that putting an actual commercial building on the property, if anything, it strictly just makes financial sense.
Yeah, because there's a lot going on that side of your side of the street already. You got a craft beer place, you're gonna have distillery, you're gonna have restaurants, you have all kinds of good things happening on there. I don't want this to be the eyesore in the midst of all those things.
Can we do something to the effect that we keep it with the zoning board, Mr. Pizzo? Can we do to something to the effect that we keep it the way the zoning board said, it's 5 years, they would have to come for an extension. Can we put, if we do consider approval on this, can we put a condition that the use is not to extend beyond 10 years, no matter what extensions are granted by the zoning board?
Why would we wait 10 years?
No, I'm saying in 5 years, they have to get a zoning board extension, which can be turned down, but in no case will we let it go on beyond 10. And have council have control of that, and not leave it up to a zoning board. Well,
I mean, we've got businesses that want to come into this corridor now, today. We've got another item on this agenda.
Not on this site.
We got on this agenda, which I believe is
It's not on this site, that's
a
not.
couple
It's not
items
on- that's
down.
not on this site.
No, but it's a block away.
It's not on this site.
So
We are trying to redevelop this now, not 5 years, not 10 years from now.
We know that it's gonna get redeveloped. I mean, there's already plans going up the road. It's just a matter, I don't want this site sitting in the middle, being the eyesore to everything else, and that's my concern. So, and it, with Mr.
Do you think turn
Knowles'
it down is
question,
gonna
Joe,
I want to
have it
would they
quicker?
agree to this as part of the motion? Isn't that possible?
It is certainly possible. If the applicant is willing to agree, then it erases all doubt as to whether or not it's an enforceable condition. I don't know if the applicant is ready and willing at this time to make such an agreement, but if it would be that essentially under the same terms as you have with the zoning hearing board, that, if they go back to the zoning hearing board after 5 years, and the zoning hearing board is so inclined to extend it up to another 5 years, and the zoning hearing board is under no obligation, at least as I read the zoning decision, to extend it in 5-year increments. They
Right,
can
I'm not
extend
saying I'm in favor of that, I'm
for-
just saying
for
this would
1
put an
year
end to it
or
at some
the
point
like.
if it got out of control.
But
Well, but
if
in
you
the-
wanted to make
Yeah.
a drop-dead period for council's purposes of, 10 years, again, if the applicant is so inclined, and, in theory, there's really very little risk to it because they're under the same set of circumstances under the zoning hearing board anyway.
Well, that's
And
my
council
point.
could certainly go to the zoning hearing board hearing where they're asking for an extension and express its displeasure and express its opposition and oppose any extension that the zoning hearing board might grant. So in theory, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. So I'm sort of telegraphing to Mr. Hecker what my thoughts are, but again, I'll leave it to the applicant to whether it would be amenable to such a condition.
We want you to be successful, and we think you can be successful with this piece, with what we're looking to do down there, the vision that we have here for Bensalem. So I guess the point I'm trying to get across is, I don't want to see trailers there for another 5 years.
And
I want to see a building on there, I want to see a restaurant on there, I want to see a supermarket
I
down there.
understand, we just don't see the draw there currently. If that starts happening, we are 100% on board. I mean, again, financially, it only makes sense for us to put a commercial building there.
Okay. I'm just making my point, so, as to that. So you can, the answer is yes, you can.
Yeah, well,
If they're,
I just don't know if say if you just outright decline it, I don't think that's going to make it a quicker changeover to commercial buildings. I don't see.
Well, I mean, he just said that he doesn't see the financial gain at this point.
No,
So he needs the.
that's not what he said. He didn't say that.
yeah, he needs to.
He needs to see that there's financial
No, he's
future
saying that
with
there's-
developing it
There's
further,
prospective
right?
people, there's prospective people
Well,
that.
in order
that
for him
need-
to do something commercial, he's got
He
to
has to have the
grind that,
commercial
he's got to
people.
grind that.
No matter what.
Gypsum, no matter what.
That's
So,
right.
I guess what, Mr. Hecker, you want to finish are you finished with your presentation?
I tell you the truth, I can't remember, but why don't you?
Because I'd like you to finish the rest of your presentation, and then we can ask more questions, because you probably have more things that are going to.
So I think the question you were asking, Mr. Pizzo, was whether you could put a limitation on it, and I wasn't quite certain what you're looking at. The zoning hearing board said 5 years with the right to extend it. These guys are looking at a tremendous price tag to do what they're proposing to do.
My point was, some of the other council members have expressed a concern that 5 years will keep getting extended into.
Right.
So just asking if we're concerned about giving control to a zoning board which I don't think you can legally just control people on the zoning board to what they do.
Right.
So if we don't want to rely on a zoning board to stop it from keep giving it extensions, that we could say you get one, you can get an extension up to another 5 years, and that's it. So that would stop it at least at 10 years. Not that I want it to go for 10 years.
No.
Now, I think if there was a viable commercial building that Tim could put on the property in 2 years, you would do it, right? Is that what I'm saying? Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's not a matter, it's a matter of having a product or a person there.
I don't think that by extending it twice the amount of time to 10 years is going to make any difference
Well,
at
I'm
all.
not extending it. I'm not extending it. I'm saying it can't go beyond.
And I'm saying, even relative to what you're saying, I don't think it would matter anyway, because you're going to have possibly a whole new council, or at that point, you're going to deal with it at that time anyway, so anything you would put in place now could be changed. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, well, you
So
can change
5
it.
years,
Well, you
if
can
it's
go that
5
way. You
years,
can
if
change
we agree on
anything.
5 years, that's.
You could change it to
that's
zone
what
it
should be.
for, you could change it to make it an amusement park.
Would your client be amenable to a 5-year, boom, that's done?
Honestly, with the price tag that we're looking at right now, in order to develop just what we need, 5 years, we're looking at maybe breaking even.
Okay, so you're definitely going to need another 5 years to make money to be able to do anything. So
Unless we-
what you're telling me, this could go on forever.
No, incorrect.
Well, it sounds like after 5 years, now that, 5 years, they can reconsider what they're gonna develop on the site.
We said 5 years,
The
he breaks
ultimate-
5
even.
years, he breaks even.
So now you need more money to
Right, so
build,
at
so now
least-
it's another 5 years.
The ultimate hope is to turn it into residential, but again, it only has a non-residential clearance.
You can't make it residential because you have to clean that out, and that's another expense to clean all that out. That's
Which
not
means
the
that won't
Riverfront
happen
side.
until
That
plus
side-
5 years.
That side is not gonna be residential. It's gonna be commercial, it's gonna be other types of things. There's not gonna go houses backing up to 95 and backing
Correct.
up to a truck route.
But
So look
having
at it,
a residential clearance allows for other businesses, such as, I believe, restaurants probably fall under
they're not allowed in residential. You can't put a restaurant in a
Yeah,
residential area.
Environmentally, he's talking.
Environmental.
Environmentally, he's talking. I guess he's.
So you're saying,
I believe under the current River Renaissance zoning for that area, the area that would be between State Road and the newly extended road when built, which would basically run almost to the rear property line, that area is intended for primarily non-residential use, at least on the ground floor, or exclusively non-residential, combined with some other that might have non-residential on the first floor and perhaps apartments or condos or things like that on the second floor. So as you go from the river, which is entirely residential with restaurants and other amenities, and work your way toward the train tracks where it would be entirely non-residential, the gradual progression takes you farther away from residential and more toward non-residential uses, be they high-tech, be they more traditional research and development, that sort of stuff. So, as Mr. Polari was saying, by and large, that region of the R55 would more than likely be principally non-residential uses, but there is the ability to have residential interspersed, again, as sort of a residential on top of non-residential, sort of a mix.
so how many years would it take for you to remediate the facility? If you do what you're doing now and you're just turning it into gypsum, how many years is it going to take for you to remediate it, for you to be able to use the property for that?
I can't answer that
Right,
question,
so we're
but
saying
I'm
it could be
hoping
5 years, 5 years,
within- I'm hoping within 4 to 5. It could be as much as 5 to 8.
Or 30, I mean, depending
I
on,
mean, I do not want to keep doing this for 30 years, I can tell you that.
But if it would make council feel better, we were talking about it, Mr. Knoll's question, agree not to extend it beyond 10 year, one further 5-year extension. They would agree to that, because the game plan here is
10
good
years.
faith by people who've owned this property for a long time.
10 years is too long for me, because it's just not going to matter. If it's 10 years, it's going to be 15 years, it's going to be 20 years. we want this riverfront to be revitalized now, not 20 years from now, not 15 years.
And so do these folks.
Not 10 years from now. But what you're saying is 5 years you need just to break even.
You can do the work in 3 months, but you don't break even for 5 years.
I mean, yes, roughly speaking.
I'd like to see the.
Is the basin, is that on the north side of State Road, even though it goes down? Is that basin there, is that on the north side?
No,
No.
it's closer to Philadelphia.
I'm
It's
sorry.
on the west
I
side.
meant to say
South.
the south side. Yeah,
South
okay.
side.
Then, and then the other ponding you said would be on the north side, is that correct? Is there any way, I mean, you said you have the flow and then you have a natural ponding with the valleys and such going there, that some of that would pond on the other side. Is that, can you bring that back into the property so there's no ponding there at all?
Well, the issue is that it runs into the neighbor's property there, and we legally cannot go onto their property.
No, I thought you said on the end of your property, you can control it to that point.
The swell.
That's just at the end of the swale at the north, the uppermost right corner.
Okay?
We're talking about a small puddle where the swale would meet the existing
But you
swale.
said it extends onto State Road, did you not, or am I mistaken?
The swell-
We're referring to the swale that, along State Road, that we would be regrading.
So there is no ponding on State Road?
Well, there is ponding.
Currently.
Currently in the swale on State Road, yes.
Will there be when this is finished?
There will be less.
Can you
along
bring
the
that
property.
ponding, which is less, back into your property, which will be none?
No, because much of that is water that is just simply flowing across State Road. And the property itself all slopes towards State Road. So everything drains
They can't
towards
reverse the
State
flow
Road
there.
than to the east.
Okay.
Well, I just said, because I'm glad Mr. Kisselback brought it up, because it was a question I was going to have just as I'm making my notes. So Ron's notes in the review letter, as well as in the TPD and the county planning, is that concern regarding ponding in the proposed driveway and at the northerly end of the site. I think the comment earlier in the
That's what I
meeting
asked
was
about, yeah.
that there would be no ponding in the driveway when everything is all said and done. We're all in agreement on that, correct?
Correct.
Yes. And then as to the northerly end of the site frontage, I'm assuming that, but again, I could be off on this, that there would be, everything would be engineered so that there would not be ponding actually in the paved cartway. If there's
Right, it would
ponding
be
at the
entirely
north end
off
of the
the
site,
cartway.
that's one thing, but there can't be ponding into the paved cartway of State Road. Is that all in agreement as well?
Yes.
And I'm assuming PennDOT, that would be a PennDOT requirement, but in any event, I know, we're addressing issues with ponding and flooding on State Road at the moment. And so one thing we want to be abundantly clear on is that we're not approving a plan that anticipates that there would still be ponding in the cartway of State Road.
I think Mr. Paz brought up a very important point. PennDOT has the last say in this matter, as far as the drainage along the road. So they will be involved in this whole design of the swale and so forth.
Is your presentation completed? Sorry.
I'm sorry?
You're done with your presentation?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. Do we have any other questions from the board at this moment? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak for or against this project? You guys want to be up the podium, please?
Thank you. Tony Belfield, 2475 Greenland Court. I have a couple quick questions. I mean, I understand the project's gone under the Act 2 program, and by what I hear, or at least I understand, you have relief of liability under Act 2 for non-residential use with the existing conditions.
Mr. Belfield?
I'm sorry, Mr. President. That is my understanding, Mr. President. Having said that, what that means is that as the site sits right now, the DEP says the site's clean, it's not hurting anybody. So I'm going to make another assumption then that taking all this gypsum and laying it off over the site and putting all the stone down is not going to be an engineering control under Act 2. It is not a prerequisite for any approvals for land use by the PADEP at this site. So that's not a cleanup thing. This is my assumption. Moving on, I guess the only other question, you look at the figure, it shows some hash lines, which I assume are parking alleys for vehicles. Then you have two other sets of boxes trailing behind. And I guess the question is that future development? Is that also going to be turned over to parking or not?
Data.
Mr. Hecker, you and your professionals answer these questions?
The zones towards the front of the site were laid out for estimating potential tractor-trailer storage capacity, and the boxes in the rear are just for planning purposes, a layout of potential leased sections of the site.
So they're
For
not painted
equipment
lines
store.
on asphalt?
No.
So those back areas will also be covered in gypsum or stone or some kind of material. So it's over,
Figure about, what,
20
75, 80%.
the site is going to be a parking lot.
75%.
Mr. Gans, my recollection was the township typically considered stoned areas like this as impervious surface due to the fact that the heavy truck use will eventually compact it and make it relatively impervious.
It's impervious if the actual motor vehicles ride on it constantly. If it's a stored trailer, there's no leakage, there's no oil or anything of that, so we would not consider that as...
Wouldn't that be related to the weight of the vehicles traveling on it? And if they're talking about cranes and heavy pieces of construction equipment, which I assume would be moving in and out of the site on a routine basis, along with the tractor trailers, would then result in a compacted impervious surface?
It could, depending on where the uses they get for lessees, yes.
So, don't we need to answer that question first?
So that would have to be covered by the basin that they plan to install.
So that would then mean that that basin can handle all of that area as an impervious surface.
Not all of it, no.
But it's all gonna be
I don't
stone and
pic-
compacted.
I don't picture the whole site being impervious.
Well, not the entire site, of course, but any area that would be stoned and be subject to compaction would
Probably
then.
the driveway extending back would end up being impervious.
So if I have a facility and I have a stone parking lot and my patron just come up and park in my parking lot, that would not be impervious?
It depends on the type of vehicle, yes.
So again,
A car is different than
yeah,
a
a car
crane
much
or-
less weight than a crane or some
Right.
heavy piece of equipment that's putting down weight. So a car probably not, a crane possibly so.
crane could be a car.
Does the township have a written policy regarding that?
No,
Perhaps something, Mr. President, we should look at, because that does seem to be an issue at the moment. I mean, again, I understand completely what the applicant is proposing, and honestly, I have no real strong objection to the application as proposed, because it is making the site better from a stormwater management standpoint and from an environmental standpoint than what its current condition is. I guess the only overarching concern I would also have is just the gypsum material itself. Crushing gypsum is a rather soft material compared to most underlayment materials. Chances are it'll produce a higher percentage of fines. So when a material is placed down, it will be a denser material. It's going to become a clay material, which again would be more impervious. While that may make a great bedding material and an awesome surface to be riding vehicles on, again, from a infiltration standpoint, that may be an impediment. Overall, though, it may wind up being a blessing to the site, because if you did use that as an engine control and a cap, you may ultimately be able to reach a residential standard at the site. Because if the only contaminant they're dealing with out there is lead in the gypsum, and you have that capped, that
I
would
would
work.
like to add on the basin, it's, at this point, it's way over designed. It's between 50 and 60% less runoff from the site. So even if the runoff to the basin was increased, there's enough of a safety factor there that it would still reduce the runoff from the site.
And again, if it can handle treating all the areas that are going to be stoned as impervious surface, and it can handle that capacity and deal with the water, associated water quality issues, God bless. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Belfield. Sir. We have anybody else who would like to speak for or against this project?
Thanks. Meg McKenna, 108 Royal Mews in Waterside.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear anything you said.
Meg McKenna, 108 Royal Mews, Waterside. Okay? It seems like an awful large property. The question is, why does it all have to be on the state roadside? Why can't it be at the back of the property that's going to be ultimately in the Renaissance plan? Isn't that always going to be commercial? And I don't know who can answer that. But why does it all have to be along state road and impact the water flow there?
That's where most of the gypsum material is in the front of the property.
Yeah, they can
not the
grind
back.
it up and put it in the back though, can't they? Why does it have to be in the front?
Because now you're gonna put more in the back for more impervious surface. Once it's matted down, now you have a bigger impervious
Right.
surface on the property, which could cause more runoff, would be more of a problem for what's down there, so.
But you also have more area where you can deal with that runoff as opposed to all up, right up against state road that already has a
That's where the
problem.
future road might be planned in the back
Mhm.
too. The
Yep.
road that might go through there.
Which
so-
is gonna have sewers and real road building. So I just object to it all being up against state road.
Very good. Anyone else like to come forward? Mr. Nero, please.
Hi, Quentin Neron, the engineering inspector for Bensalem Township. Just wanted to comment on Mr. Belfield's comments and just clarify a few things. There is an interoffice memorandum what we do regarding stone. Clean stone, which has no fines, we are considering that as a pervious area. Fresh stone, we are considering that as an impervious area. So I don't know if that's what you guys have been following in your reviews for the gypsum or not. I don't know what your stone bed is on for the cap, but that would need to be looked into to make sure of that whole area. So,
What kind of stone are they using?
I don't know what you're
Correct.
using for your cross-section.
Mr. Bowles, what you stated when you would be crushing the gypsum, it would be gravel. Will this gravel be absent fines?
It will be absent fines.
So
So it'd be
at
more-
some point, it would become impervious. There was very few fines and it was able to percolate. So we would need to see a stone sieve analysis of what that stone result is going to be.
They're putting wallboard on that floor. They're wetting it down.
Hi, Debbie Towson, 123A Hagen Drive, Bensalem. I live in Waterside, and we've been dealing with the whole water issue. My question is that, as I'm driving by where all the ponding is already on State Road, I'm seeing water flowing from the trucking company into the pond, whatever that's supposed to be, next to State Road. Now I'm looking at this, and they're saying, well, you know, we're going to make this bigger, but then again, it's going to butt against where we don't have any control over the water issue. I'm not sure who's watching over the trucking company where the water's flowing down, you know, and ponding on State Road. And I'm not sure who's going to watch over and make sure that doesn't happen here if this is built. Who's watching over to make sure that this doesn't end up flooding onto State Road as well? That would be my question.
The Township Building and Planning Department would be responsible to monitor the runoff on the property to make sure that it meets the specifications that were given. Some of the properties on the other side of the street were there before there were zoning ordinances and things of that nature. So as things get changed and we get some new development in, it'll help us to better control the water facility. But we're also looking as a mayor and council to do other things down there on our behalf to help alleviate some of the problems that are down there. So they're all things that we're going to do together to try and make this happen. And what they're showing on water runoff here is that it's going to run off less water. It's going to hold it in the basin, not run it out as fast as it comes down now. There's a lot of different issues down there that have to be looked at, but what they're doing here is showing that that's going to give less runoff onto State Road.
Sure, and I understand, but the water eventually is going to go into the swells that are already, filled in. They just don't have enough. So, yes, it'll handle it there, but you think that it's going to be less going into the swells that are already there?
They have to clean out the swales that are there now that are all silted up, so it's going to hold more water there. We go by what the professionals give us, our engineers, as to what it's going to hold and what it's going to do, and that kind of determination. Some of the heavy rains that we've had in the last week to 10 days have been really a lot. And, it doesn't drain well at the Columbus Country Club, which is an issue over there, and these are all things that we're working on issues right now to try and help alleviate that.
So even say the water coming from the trucking company that's coming down on the water, or down into the water there where it's ponding, that would, if this situation occurred, you're saying that you can't really do anything about the trucking company because it's already been there, but this is a new one, so you would be on top of any issues that occur.
I didn't say that. I said that there's things we can't do with the trucking company, but we as a township are looking to do things to alleviate that. So we are working on this situation. And hopefully one day the trucking company will sell and that'll be houses and there'll be more underground detention and hold the water. There's a lot of things that are gonna have to be looked into to get this
But in
done.
this case, you would be responsible. You would be checking into it.
Our building and planning department, yes.
If it passed and as the years went by.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else like to come forward?
I have a question for Ron, if I may.
Seeing no one come forward, I'm going to close public comment. Go ahead, Ed.
Ron, I have a question relative to the stormwater management.
Yes.
The numbers that we have, pre-development and post-development, is that based on the property being covered with impervious or pervious surface? Has any bearing on that at all?
They look at sections of the property. If the section of gypsum is impervious, that would be thrown in the calculation. If the section is just earth, that has a less of a rate of runoff, and they average that out to come up with the total runoff from the site.
But so what I'm asking now, on this one, were they considering the covering of gypsum to be impervious or pervious?
I would assume impervious.
We were treating it as a gravel material.
But if it does compact, it's,
Entirely impervious, no.
right, but if it compacts, it's no longer going to be, because it's going to be like blacktop.
Right, so the plan is to crush it now, sit for 5 years, possibly more, under compaction of whatever equipment that you're storing. At that point, when theoretically this goes to get redeveloped, would it have to be crushed again because it had been compacted and hardened over time due to weight, rain, snow, runoff, all sorts of things?
Well, if they developed it, they would have to go with a new stormwater management plan.
No, but I'm saying, after sitting there as crushed gravel for 5 years, getting further compacted, hardening all over again, we'd have to go through this whole remediation effort, this whole crushing effort all over again.
Well, it would be a different circumstance in that it would not be a concentrated deep mound of material hardened like concrete. It
It'd
would
be
be
16 inches thick all
correct.
over.
And it could be managed on a site-by-site basis by regrading and capping without the same level of effort.
But it would still be a significant amount of effort.
I don't believe it would be, no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are you asking, will that be a financial advantage by waiting and doing it later, is that what you're saying?
For the whole project?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
In other words, if they're spending this money to grind it down, and then if they're going to have to redo it later on, the money that they made by extending this 5 years,
They're gonna
how
have
will
to
that
spend it all over
benefit?
again.
Yeah, exactly.
And all
That's
over
what I'm
again
asking.
because you're not-
And then you're just kicking the can down the road further and further.
Do you have any other questions from the board at this time? If not, a motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion to deny the preliminary land development plan.
Do we have a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay?
Nay. This is all on me, right? Yep. I hear the humming out there. It's a tough decision, because what we're looking at here is, something that could affect the whole project down there.
I think we can do better.
I'm going to say nay. Motion fails. Do we have any other motions on the project?
I'll put a motion on the table to accept the preliminary land development submitted to us based on Ron Gann's memorandum dated October 10th, 2018. Based on the, what's this, 19.65 acres, the parcel at 2600 State Road. All the zoning has been put into place relative to the 5-year term. The applicant will comply with Chapter 201 Land Development, Section D. He will comply with number 1, number 2. I would ask that we waive the number 3, and there would be a fee payment in lieu of, as well as a waiver for number 4 regarding the pipes. And the applicant will comply with 5 through 10 on Chapter 201. Storm management will be based on the numbers that were given to us in the application, and it would be subject to the approval of our township engineer, especially when it comes to any free-flowing water or ponding not to exceed or go onto State Road. You got that, Ron?
Yes.
Okay. And that would be the motion.
And the driveway
Oh, and the driveway being of impervious surface would not have any ponding on that or in the area of. Is that expressed properly, John?
That's correct.
Okay.
And
I believe Mr. Gann spoke at one point to doing, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but some type of an analysis of the crushed gypsum to make a determination as to whether it's going to be deemed pervious or impervious?
Yes.
Or are we
sieve
treating it
analysis.
as impervious, or what's
Yes.
the answer there?
We want to see analysis of what the crushed gypsum will result, what the result will be when they crush it.
And if that were the case, we were to change that, that may change the
It
basin.
may change the design of the basin, although I
and,
did state that it's already over-designed by quite a bit.
All right, and the only other thing I'd like to add to it is that the front of State Road will be protected with the trees as shown on the rendering presented this evening, so there won't be any visual sight into the property at all.
But so that the record's clear as part of your motion, so between preliminary and final, the analysis of the crushed gypsum will be performed. The township engineer, in its discretion, will determine whether it's going to be deemed pervious or impervious. If it's deemed to be pervious, then the stormwater management calculations will have to be resubmitted to the township engineer and approved by the township engineer based on the determination of that analysis. Is that correct, Mr. Gans?
Yes.
And I agree with that also.
Is your final agreement only through the 5 years, no extension? Or it's 5 years and extended as long as they want?
In response,
10?
I'm not here to bargain, I'm not here to bargain. I'm not here to barter. I want this done as quickly as possible for the residents down there, for the development of, I don't want to hear 5 years and then 5 years and then 5 years and then 5 years. We're shooting ourselves in the foot. We went through a lot to get this where it is. Mr. Patrick, you want to talk to your clients or give me an answer?
well, I had offered before, no more than one additional 5-year period. We wouldn't ask for it, but
10 years, there's no need for it to take 10 years.
But the intention, obviously, is to move forward with as soon as possible. if you cannot be comfortable with the fact that this property has been in this family for 70 years, and these folks have all the incentive in the world to move forward with this as expeditiously as possible, then I would say to you, leave it at 5 years and deal with it if, in fact, we have to request an extension. Having the 5-year limitation also gives them the incentive to get it done within that 5-year period. So,
I would like to see it maintain the 5 years, and if we had to deal with it in 5 years, we will have it in front of us to, I'm sorry.
Yeah, let's go back to zoning. Council won't have another chance to take a look at this.
That's right, you did say that.
Is that your motion?
That's why.
Hence-
Did you second the motion? Just finish the motion.
Yes.
I'll second the motion.
Any questions on the motion?
I have a question. So as part of your motion, Mr. Kisselbeck, did you include a time limitation? Just, I apologize because I was making notes.
I did not, on my
Okay.
motion, I did not.
All right, thank you.
So it's zoning and lead exemption.
So I guess my question is, well, never mind. I think I've stated all I have to
All in
say.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
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 Okay.
gentlemen, thank you very much.
We're going to take 5 minutes. We're going to call the meeting back to order. Number 10 in the agenda, consideration of preliminary land development and subdivision applicant, excuse me if I get this wrong, Barak Jorka, 1154 Tennis Avenue, 3 lots, single-family dwellings, R2 residential, tax parcel 2-25-14. Did I?
Close enough.
Sorry about that.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Steve Quigley. I'm a landscape architect with Dumac Engineering, here to talk about this 3-lot subdivision and to ask for your approval on the preliminary plan. This site is now and originally was a greenhouse setup. The greenhouses were in great disrepair. The superstructure on those greenhouses has been taken down. If you don't know the site, I'd be happy to bring up a picture for you and show you what it looks like. But we're taking the greenhouses down and asking to subdivide into 3 single-family lots. We've received the letters from the township engineer. There are no outstanding issues that have on that letter. We've received the letter from TPD for traffic. We have no issues with anything that's on that letter. Everything is a will comply. Most of it has already been taken care of on the plan. I'd be happy to entertain questions from the board.
Mr. Kaiser, do you have the mailings?
I've been provided the mailings, and they do appear to be in order at this time.
Okay. I'm sorry I got preoccupied there. Did you go through Section D, the subdivision and land development?
We did. I mean, I have nothing on there that we need to deal with. We are asking for several waivers on it. When we were at the Planning Commission, the Planning Commission recommended approval of 2 of the waivers using the aerial photograph for man-made features and the requirement to widen Cedar and Tennis Avenues. They noted that obviously we would be paying a fee in lieu of for installation of curbs and sidewalks. That note has to be put on the plan for final. And there was a question about inspecting the site for contaminants, which actually came up from a resident. It was a good question. A phase 1 study has been done. No contaminants were found. And Ron, I'll get you a copy of that report.
All right. Could you go through that again really quick, volume for 1,
Sure.
2, 3, and 4? Which one will you comply and which one are you asking for waivers?
We're complying with, or we're asking for the waivers for permitting the use of the aerial photograph for man-made features.
Right.
And also for the requirement to widen both Cedar and Tennis Avenues.
That's what I got.
We will have a note on the plan to pay the fee in lieu of for curb and sidewalks rather than asking for waiver.
So that is a waiver. Go ahead.
And then we were asked about whether there were any contaminants on the site from having greenhouses. And we had that study done, which I'll get to the engineer. And the Phase 1 study showed no contaminants.
Ron, have you seen that?
No, I have not.
It just came in, literally.
Okay, so we're making a decision based upon not having all the information that we need.
We have it on this. I can show you the results page if you'd like to see.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Mr. Gans needs to review it, and then it needs to come.
Not a problem.
So,
This is only preliminary, so.
I understand.
On the aerial photography, that would be certainly accurate, probably more so, so that's not a problem.
That's not a problem.
Okay.
It's on the other side. So they're not showing the apartments.
How do these lot sizes compare to the neighboring lots?
About the same size, if not slightly larger, as I remember.
There's a note in Mr. Gantz's letter, and maybe, Ron, you can answer this, but it says also included was an application for a contract for professional services. What is that? Can you explain that, please?
That's required of every developer to make a professional services agreement with the attorneys and the engineers for payment, guaranteed payment of services.
And that would be included to the township?
That's prepared by the solicitor's office.
Okay. Got it. I don't have any other questions.
Do you have any other questions from the board? Mr. Pazzo?
Just so that I'm clear on the waiver request for the widening of Cedar and Tennis. And obviously, at the end of the day, at least as to Tennis, it's a state road, so PennDOT will make its determination. But Ron, have either you or TPD made a recommendation as to whether that waiver should be granted or denied?
So it's on the other side.
I just recommended they continue what's out there, rather than widening it for the width of one lot.
Okay. Do you have any other questions?
So would that be subject to PennDOT approval now?
So it would be a waiver subject to final decision by PennDOT
Quentin,
on the state
isn't
highway.
Tennis is a township road, isn't it? Above Bristol, it's township. And below Bristol, it's...
Yeah, I didn't think either one was a state
No,
road at that
they're
point.
not. They're not a state
My
road.
apologies, I saw a reference in the TPD letter to applicable PennDOT PATA figures, so I took that to mean that PennDOT was involved on Tennis Avenue. But, okay.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions for this applicant?
Is I'm assuming that most of the original, I guess a flower shop or greenhouse?
Flower shop, greenhouse, yeah, all of that.
Well, when you say greenhouse, I was thinking the greenhouse across the other side of Bristol Pike.
The other way, yeah.
Yeah, next to Colonial Apartments, but this is at the bottom of Tennis Avenue behind Fleur's Funeral Home.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Past Baxter on your
Right,
left.
correct.
I forget the name of that flower shop, but I knew the guy. but-
I don't think I ever knew it. But
Yeah, I talked to him all the time. So that's completely done, right?
the superstructure's down and gone, yes.
Now, isn't there, was the tank removed out of there? Wasn't there a large oil
Oil
tank
tank?
in the front yard?
That's been removed, correct? Yeah. 5,000 gallon tank was removed.
5,000 gallons?
No problem, no issues.
Because that was up for sale, that property, okay. And then this separate property in the back would just go off of Cedar Avenue, but just be really like a single house on Cedar, really?
Correct. That's the back part of the greenhouses.
Any other questions from the board?
Okay, yeah, that's the original part.
And that paved driveway that exists now that connects Tennis to Cedar, that will be demolished? and-
Demolished, taken out, yeah, right, to create space for the houses
lots
and new driveways.
Green space, okay.
Correct.
That's the only commercial property back here.
Yeah, they're all.
That's all.
I did note on the plans, there's gonna be a significant reduction in impervious surface with this project.
Correct. Incredible amount of reduction.
Help any stormwater issues back there.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak for or against this project?
Hi, Sarah Hutchins, 1140 Cedar Ave. I just wanted to comment that we are for the development of the property, and we are looking forward to the development of the property big time. And that the developer has been phenomenal with the neighbors and communicating in the mail and notifications and everything like that.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one come forward, public comment is closed. If there's no other questions from the board, then a motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion that we approve the preliminary land development and subdivision for tax parcel 2-25-14.
Mr. Sloan, you going to put any requirement as far as the environmental report that came in?
Yes, subject to the review and agreement of the environmental report by the township engineer.
And then also waivers D1, 2, and the fee in lieu of?
Yeah, that would be included.
I'll second it.
Okay, any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Final, no sense to come back. We shouldn't have done that. We shouldn't have done that. Number 11 is already taken care
Number
of.
12. Number 12 on the agenda, consideration of land development extension agreement, applicant LBD Enterprises Incorporated, site information Crespo Estates Phase 2, tax parcel 2-7-4. Mr. Pizzo, are you hand on that?
Yes. I trust no lengthy explanation is necessary. It's the land development agreement for LBD Enterprises for Crespo Estates Phase 2. The applicant is requesting that the development agreement be extended to January of 2020. If council is of a mind to grant the request and approve the extension agreement, it would be the recommendation of the administration that you do so subject to an audit of the applicable escrows for the property by the finance department and the township engineer to assure that they remain at the amounts necessary for the completion of the project.
What exactly is phase 2 of this? My understanding is Crespo Estates is the one street that comes down off Park Avenue and ends in a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
That's correct.
We have an approval to do
So
the,
Phase 2 is an extension of the cul-de-sac back, a small creek crossing, and then extending the street back
To the left.
toward
To do more.
more single-family homes.
So
13.
to this date, nothing has been done on phase 2, correct?
That is correct.
Are there-
Nothing's been constructed.
Right.
I've had a fair amount of engineering and governmental approvals have been obtained, but there's been no construction.
Well, clearly this is getting dragged out. Do we have any indication of what a realistic timeline is for the completion of this project?
Based on what's occurred so far, I think that the 2020 date would be acceptable.
The project was subject to some litigation following the township's approval of the project. One of the neighboring property owners brought suit against the developer. My understanding is that that litigation was ultimately resolved with the neighboring property owner getting a lot in phase 2. So, but I believe that did slow things down because
Okay.
litigation was brought at a time when it then forced the project into the downturn in the housing market. So.
Okay.
Okay, I'm ready to put a motion on the floor to accept the land development extension to January 11th, 2020 for agenda item number 12,
do we have a second on the motion?
Crespo Estates, Phase 2.
I'll second the motion.
Any questions on the motion?
Just one. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask how many houses are included in Phase 2?
13.
13. And is this something that can be done within the next 14 months?
If the economy is right for more housing, yes, I think.
Well, not, that's selling, but what about the?
Well, I think 2 years would be sufficient to build 13 homes.
But we're talking about 14 months, not a full 2 years.
Well, it'd be close. It'd be close.
So in all likelihood, a year from now, we'll be seeing another extension request.
It's a possibility. If you'd be more comfortable to give it a longer extension, I'm sure they would accept it.
No, I mean, I'd like to see it move forward. I'm just trying to understand, is this realistic or?
The reason we've
But-
always kept it at the 1 year is so that we
can look at it again if we
look
need
at
And that's
it
fine, that's why I
further.
wanted to ask and
Yeah.
figure out what the scope is.
Yeah.
Like, clearly, this is an older project and.
I
wasn't
think,
around.
I think because he got involved in litigation with the neighbor,
It
that
stalled
he was
out.
in Bucks County Court, and then he had they had problem with the trees, and then they got a free lot, so they dropped the case, is my understanding. And now he's trying to sell it, I think he's trying to sell it to, because he's gotten even elderly, I think, since the case dragged out. But he's trying to sell it to a developer or developer himself, so he's got to decide what he's going to do at some point, whether he's going to build it or not.
Okay.
And hence the 1 year. So at the 1 year, we still have.
But if
1 year makes more sense.
I don't think you're going to see 13 houses there 1 year from now, to be honest.
I don't think so, but at least we'll
Well,
have a better
I'm
idea
pretty sure they're not going to be.
of, where this stands.
But I think it's.
But it may be something solid in a year, that we know what's going
Right,
to happen.
that's, but I mean, if we don't see any plans by then, at that point, then I think we need to.
Yeah, then you could look at it and see whether they're going to do anything.
Take that up a year from now, but yeah, any more years still gives us our teeth to be able to make sure that everything's being done.
Now, is there a construction equipment part down there?
No.
No, there's nothing.
Okay.
The problem is they need to build a bridge to go over the creek.
creek
and so
first.
it's very expensive.
And
so.
that took a lot of approval process.
Yeah,
to
and
get
it's
that
very
approved.
expensive too, because they didn't want to go through, they originally wanted to go through the clusters, and we didn't want that street and the clusters being bothered by the development. So he agreed to build a bridge, and I think what happened was when they got drug into court, it slowed it up so much. Now the cost of building the bridge with the housing market the way it is, it's becoming where, at some point he may just throw up his hands.
And have
I'm
those
sure.
plans, I would assume they've all been approved?
Yeah, they're in
Yeah.
the building. plan.
Okay.
And you said there is no construction equipment? Because I remember seeing down there at the end of the cul-de-sac on the right-hand side that.
I've never seen any construction equipment down there. He's not doing construction or anything.
No, I
Not
don't
that I
think
saw.
he is, yeah.
The
I
construction
definitely
is way
recall
down the
seeing-
hill.
He lives there also.
He lives on the
does,
street,
yes.
so.
Yeah, he lives there, and it could be equipment that he has at his property there or something that he's able to have, but if it's there, I don't even know.
Is that allowed by our ordinance?
I never saw equipment there, but I don't know.
We can get Quentin to go out and check it out and make sure what's down there.
Thank you, Quentin.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ayes have it 5-0. Number 13 on the agenda, planning module for Broken Goblet. We finally got this has been a long drawn out process too. It had to go to the city of Philadelphia. The city of Philadelphia takes forever. They approved it, then it has to go to the Board of Health. They finally approved it. So we finally have the information. I think Debbie said it out to you guys, to everybody. And Joe, did you want to touch on this?
Everything that I said earlier in regard to the planning module for Ivy State Road property, item number 8, will apply here. Same thing, the township's approval of the resolution is required in order for them to move forward with the building permits. As I understand it, at this point, everything has been received from the city and from the County Water and Sewer Authority. So the township is now the missing piece to move this forward. So.
Well, we don't actually have a resolution at this point. Do you have the resolution? I don't have it.
It was part of the packet.
Yeah, with the email and
They emailed a package through from
Oh, did you get it?
Was there a revolution?
Oh, great. Okay, we have it right here. Yeah, he did that today.
As I said, I haven't seen it either, but I understand one was
Okay.
received.
I didn't get it. So you could go ahead and approve the 537 resolution?
Sure.
Yeah.
I believe that's what we're being asked to do.
Okay.
Is, again, this being a project that looks like has been in the works for some time, the plans are in the township approved, the development plans?
Yeah, there's some things they're working on the property down there, but they're already getting themselves together and getting ready to go, so they couldn't go any further without having this.
So this is just for the sewer tie-ins?
Right, for them
Got
to
it.
be able to operate. All right, so a motion would be in order?
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution for plan revision for new land development for property at 2500 State Road.
I'll second.
And I toast that resolution.
Do we have any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, ayes have it, 5-0. Number 14 on the agenda, consideration of a reduced fire inspection fee for Bensalem Township School District.
I'm assuming we see it each year.
Yeah, that's, well, they're asking for their waiver of all the fees for everything they do. I've been inclined in the past to do this, but in lieu
For the school district?
Yeah, in lieu of some of the other things that are going on, not allowing the youth organizations to use the schools anymore.
No, that's not true.
Without paying rent.
That's not true. They withdrew that.
Did they?
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't seen that anywhere, so thank you.
Oh, they
for-
immediately withdrew it.
Thank you for that. You know, I'm hoping that we continue the good relationship that we've had with them in the past with the grant that we gave them to help build the gymnasium and things like that. It was supposed to be open to the residents, and it's not. For whatever reason, they don't leave that open to it. So I didn't hear that they reversed themselves, so. All right, well.
This is 50%, right, Joe? It's from
Right, they're asking for-
9170 to 4,585.
Correct. So a motion would be in order if you guys want to approve it.
I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion that we approve the 50% reduction for the fire fees for Bensalem Township School District.
I'll second it.
Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ayes have it, 5-0. All right. Number 17 on the agenda, consideration of an escrow release for Regency Estates Incorporated, release number 3, AKA Marmar Builders Incorporated, 2776 Mechanicsville Road, tax parcel 2-36-9, in the amount of $45,475. Mr. Gans.
Yes, the applicant has requested that amount, and we are in agreement with the request, and therefore recommend the release, subject to audit by the Finance Department.
Mr. Gans, do you know what work is remaining with only $31,000 left in escrow?
We're fortunate enough to have Mr. Neron here for that very purpose, so he will let us know.
So bottom line, we have not done a formal punch list yet. The only issue we do have is the detention basin is designed for percolation. We're not getting that, so we're trying to figure out what the final outcome will be on that.
Okay.
The road is done, it's paved, striping's done, signage is done, landscaping's done, signage is done. We're waiting for PennDOT to sign off on their HOP for that. So really the only outstanding issue we do have that we're aware of would maybe be the property markers and the detention basin.
Okay.
And the $30,000 would be enough to take care of that if they don't do it?
I would assume $5,000 would be fine.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll put in our form of motion, we accept it as presented.
I'll second it.
Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ayes have it, 5-0. Consideration of an escrow release for Somerton Valley Homes LP, Phase 1, release number 16, Carter Road and Somerton Road 2-6-1 and 2-7-2, the amount of $2,458.30. Mr. Gaines.
Yes, they had requested $22,458.30. We are suggesting that release that you just mentioned of $2,458.30, subject to audit by the Finance Department. And we have Mr. Neron here if anybody has any questions regarding our recommendation.
They're dwindling down to those last 10 houses now, right?
Two buildings left on the whole site.
And then that'll be
So-
concluded.
Yeah, so I've got some questions, but I think we answered most of this last time, maybe a meeting or two ago, when we brought up this work being bumped out into the third phase. So I'm assuming, even though this is just contingency, that this is related to that work that was pushed out into that last phase. Is that correct?
Correct. So over the last few weeks, they have done some of the punch list work, trying to rectify the basin, which has not been fully accepted by our office yet. They have done some cleanup, which has been some outstanding issues. So we did give them some release money of the contingency until we are 100% on that phase.
Okay, and this is stuff that, like we said, the scope was kind of moved into
Exactly.
phase 3?
So it's been moved, certain line items are moved to phase 3, so we released money from phase 1 since it is available in phase 3 and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
Might as well stay there.
I know.
Yeah,
Hey, we got two more. Okay,
Yeah, just one while he's up there. Since we brought up the two, so we're looking at roughly 190,000 remaining after these three. I mean, do you feel that that's sufficient enough to cover whatever's remaining in this project?
Yes, I do. Basically, the only cost we really have out there will really be the paving of the roadway, which is the phase 3.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Right, no-
No, we don't
Somebody
have
make a
any.
motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve escrow release for Somerton Valley Homes, Phase 1, in the amount of $2,458.30.
I'll second.
Any questions on the motion?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, ayes have it, 5-0. Number 19 on the agenda, consideration of an escrow release for Somerton Valley Homes, Phase 2, release number 21, Carter Road, Somerton Road, 2-6-1, 2-7-2, in the amount of $3,255.41. Mr. Gaines.
That is what we're recommending. The request was for $24,266.41, subject to audit by the Finance Department of our approval.
Is that a ditto from, on
Ditto.
that?
That answers the question. There
Okay,
you
then the
go.
motion would be in order.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Any question on motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, ayes have it, 5-0. One more, Quentin. Consideration of escrow release for Somerton Valley Homes, Phase 3, release number 16, in the amount of $50,795.25. Mr. Gaines.
Once again, they requested slightly more, $64,205.25.
Mr. Neron?
Ditto?
Thank you.
I do have one question, only because, so on the last page of this one, it actually says some items are linked to Phase 2 or Phase 3. Nothing is specifically noted as Phase 1, but is that just some of the, like, the earthwork?
Well, they specifically asked us for certain line items.
Okay.
So on that spreadsheet, where it's like a breakdown for your
Yeah.
reference and dollar amounts, they might not have asked anything for phase 1 money.
But we released contingency for Phase 1.
Right, for punch list work. So
Oh, punch list, okay,
yeah,
that's
so-
right, okay,
So
got
if
it.
there's a contingency item, it's just a contingency. It's not listed as punch list for line striping or paving or anything like that.
Got it, okay. Thank you.
I'll make the motion we approve.
I will second.
Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you, Quentin, appreciate it. Number 21 on the agenda, public comment. Is there anyone would like to come forward?
Good evening all. My name is Linda Biddle Snyder, and I reside at 1048 Orchid Avenue in Bensalem. So thanks for letting me come up and share again and continue on with what's going on in my neighborhood. I'm just going to be really brief with this to give you an idea of what's been going on. That, I came to Bensalem in 1996. So I want to just let you guys know that I know struggle, and I know my neighbors are struggling, the squatters that live next door to me. And it's a sad situation. And it's even sadder that I'm living with the dangerous fumes that come out of that home, and et cetera, which I have stated before. And I understand that it is in court in Doylestown because I went to watch the proceedings. So in 1996, I had to flee from Kentucky. I was an abused wife of an alcoholic. I came here with 2 children and came to Bensalem, and I had a wonderful opportunity presented to me. My sister purchased the home that I now live in, and she said, you can live there for 10 years, and if you're financially able and you pay your rent on time and take care of the property, you can then buy it. And that happened. I bought that property. And I was a struggling mom. So I understand struggles because I made $12 too much to get food assistance. And I learned, to go to the food banks. I kept my electric on. I kept my water on. I took care of my home's needs with a lot of duct tape and hammers and glue and did what I had to do. And I didn't break any laws while living there. I got permits when need be. I paid every tax bill on time, most of the time prior to when it was due. And I voted every year. And I continue to do that. And I feel like I'm planted in Bensalem for life, I hope. So my point of that being that after I purchased the home in 2006. In 2008, Bensalem Township came to me and said, well, you don't have a UNO. I said, really? Okay. So what do I need to do that? It was explained to me what I had to do. I had a whole punch list of things to do, from the proper outlets to a railing going down to my basement, which is really just, I don't know what you call it, but you go down like a ladder type of steps that I installed with a railing. I had to put a railing on it to get to the oil tank and the hot water tank and the heater. So I did everything that had to be done. I had my chimney certified. I had a big steel thing put in the chimney. I may not know all the names of everything because I'm not an engineer, but I did everything on that punch list. And it cost plenty to do it. And I did it, and I did it in a timely manner, and I had all the certifications taken to the township building here, the planning office. Now, speed ahead 8 years later, I get a letter in the mail telling me that I'm going to be charged $1,000 a day if I do not comply and have all these things re-inspected. And when I came here to the planning office, I was told they were not on record. I said, I surrendered every document, but if you don't have them, then I will do it again. I don't understand why they don't have them because it was on record at one time. So I had to put out several $1,000s to get my chimney re-certified, have my heater inspected, get that all certified, had to get my electrical box certified. And in that process, I was told that it was no longer compliant because times have changed, had to be upgraded, and it was probably for my safety. So I agreed, a couple $1,000s, had that done. I did everything within 90 days. And it wasn't easy because I hadn't worked for a year, and my husband had recently retired, but I did it. And now, I'm living next door to squatters. And I understand that I went to court, and I understand that the owner of the property has just been discovered. I knew this 2 years ago, and I told Bensalem Township who owned the property. It was so frustrating to sit in that courtroom and watch the solicitor and the code enforcer, the code enforcement officer, just fumble and not have the answers prepared for the judge. The judge asked very simple questions. He just wanted proof of why is this order in contempt? What do you want me to do, is what the judge said. And the solicitor said, well, they're in contempt. And the judge said, how? And I'm like, I really was upset. I could have stood up and answered all those questions. And I couldn't. I had to sit there and be quiet. So then I was called up as a witness. And the solicitor said to me, I'm going to ask you all the questions to get this cleared up with the judge. Now, he did not ask me the questions that were needed to prove that they were in contempt. They came without papers, they had some papers they handed out as evidence, but they came without the simple proof that these people are still living there. Sad. So the judge, basically the couple that are squatting represented themselves, and the judge granted them an extension, and they are still living next door to me. The junk is unbelievable that has piled up. Now it's cold, so now I have to deal with the fume, not only the fumes of the 2 generators running, which they do not have permits for. I have to deal with the smell coming out of the chimney because whatever it is, they're burning inside this uninspected wood stove. There is no running water, God forbid, while the children are sleeping there, they have a fire. God forbid. God forbid it explodes. Our houses are probably about 22 feet apart, and I'm done being patient. I'm a tax-paying, voting citizen, and I am done being patient. Something needs to be done. And I'm sure that the judge wants to do this all, they're innocent. These people are innocent in the eyes of the law until they're proven guilty. And I've had no education other than being a citizen to know that. How difficult is it? I will not get upset. I'm really angry. And nobody's ever seen this before because I have been so kind to these people and I've been patient 3 years. How hard can it be to prove that they are squatting, that they are living there, staying there overnight? I don't know. But it wasn't proved, and they are still there, and they will be there. Well, I will say this. On Friday, November 16th, this week, it will go before the judge again in Doylestown, and I will be there. And I surely hope that our taxpayer dollar is going to good use, and we have a solicitor there to represent us as Bensalem residents and citizens and have this taken care of. And if these people are having a struggle, I will tell you that as a former struggling single mom, I know you can get help. You don't have to have your water turned off. You don't have to have your electric turned off. You don't have to live that way because there's help, and there's 2 adults there. I was 1 adult. My children were never taken. That house was kept safe. So I know that it's a struggle, and I know firsthand, and I'm disappointed that they are still there. And the original homeowners are deceased, and the next of kin is alive and well, and has never, ever, ever, ever been subpoenaed to court or notified. They just keep sending the letters to where the squatters are residing, and they don't open it, they don't care. They don't care. Because why? They're getting away with it, and they can do it. So thank you for my little rant. Thank you for allowing me to do that. I'm not going to break the law. I'm going to stay there as long as I can. I know I'm going to put my house up on the market, and I'm going to get the hell out of Dodge, really, because I'm so disappointed. I'm disappointed deeply that it's taken so long. And it is a simple procedure, I understand, from what I saw in court. All they have to do is prove that they are there. It's not illegal to live off the grid. You can live off the grid if that's what they choose, and I'm all for that. I would like to do that. But you have, by law, you need to go and get the proper permits. They don't even have a permit. They don't have any permits. So I'm going to be quiet and let you guys talk. And
I'm going to set up a meeting with the mayor and go find out exactly where we are, what's going on, why it's taking this long to do that. And at that point, we can try and get this solved. I mean, we tried to stay, it's not something that is ours to do, but it is ours to support you and protect you. So that discussion is going to be had, and we're going to find out what's going on. And if whoever's handling it isn't going to handle it, then we need to get somebody else. We'll work on that, and I'm going to set up a meeting with the mayor tomorrow and see if we can get this.
I have phone calls into the mayor, but I'm sure it was a busy election, few weeks, and all this was happening. And
we're going to get to the bottom of this once and for all. So it's got to be done. This is far too long for you guys to have to live under those circumstances. And I don't understand how squatters that don't own the building can be up there representing the owner, so we'll have to find out these things. I don't know all the specifics, but I'm going to set up a meeting with the mayor. I'm going to call him tomorrow, set up a meeting, we're going to see if we can get to the bottom of
I
it.
do want to interject one comical thing that happened. They represented themselves.
Right.
So they were able to question the solicitor. They were able to question Chris Savage. They were able to question me. And they told the judge that they have the nicest lawn on the block. And my thing is, okay, that they're right to have that opinion, but where are all the photos that I personally took, paid to have developed, and handed over to the solicitor and to the mayor? There was no evidence presented.
I'm going to set up a meeting with the mayor and go find out what's going on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Blair, we only have till Friday, right?
16, she said the limit.
Well, that's part of what I'm going to talk to him about.
Okay, because if there's another court date, my concern is if she feels like the solicitor wasn't, I don't want to say wasn't qualified, but obviously didn't do enough.
I
Right.
can't make that determination, that's why I wanted to.
No, I realize that, but I just want to stress the importance of the timeliness of this
I
because
got
of
it.
the court date.
They got it.
And then can I, just one other quick question too, as far as the safety and welfare of the children that are in that house? If there's no heat, no electric, is there something outside of just taking them to court that we would have to address?
Well,
just from-
that's some of the stuff that's some of the stuff I'm going to have to follow up on. In the courts today, I mean, there's certain things that have to be followed and have to be done, but you've been doing this for 3 times. This isn't your first time up here talking about this, and it keeps going on and on and on.
Children were removed. I want to say that the children were removed.
They have.
Okay, good.
But they come back for visitation, and now I notice they're there more and more, and overnight. And they do have heat because they burn wood or something that smells. We used to think it was trash, but we're not sure. Just funky smells all the time. It gives you headaches.
Yeah, I'm gonna set up an appointment with the mayor and discuss this with him, find out exactly what we are, where we are, and what's going on from there, so no problem. Anyone else like to come forward with public comment?
Floss Heckler, 114A Royal Mews, Bensalem. As was proven today, state road flooding is definitely a public safety issue. We're here to ask, the last meeting, the mayor and the land development planner were supposed to contact the trucking companies, and I believe there's also Piles of Stone, that is a separate company. We have photos, if anyone needs them, of water just dripping, 2 different streams that is adding, it's coming from the trucking company, adding to the flooding that's already there. And the mayor and the land development plan was supposed to meet, and I guess we want to know if they have. That was the first question.
They are working on that. I did talk to the mayor about it yesterday. PennDOT is looking at the back area that used to be dug out to hold some of the waters back that hasn't been done in a while. He's going to have Jim Ryan, our public works, the head of our public works department, go down and have his guys go down and see what we have to do to try and clear that out. That'll alleviate some of
Maintain
the problems.
that creek?
Yeah.
Okay.
And opening it so that it's holding the water as it should be. I was with the mayor today on that, and that was one of the things that we discussed on that getting forward, because he was down there today too, down there checking it out today too, because we of course we get calls all the time on it. There's other things that we're working on too. We're working on there's money in the budget to be able to do some work down there. Plus, we're working on some grants. We're working on trying to get some grants. Mr. Belfield is working on getting see if we can get some grants to help us to do it right.
Right.
So that's
because no paving or milling next year without a permanent solution between PennDOT and engineering in the township, please.
We can't stop PennDOT,
Okay.
but the PennDOT guy, when he was here,
But
they
he
want to
was
work with
going to
us.
go 2 bosses over him
Yeah, they wanna
because
work
he
with-
only covers the paving.
Yeah, he wants to work with us and get it done, and we're working on other scenarios that might be able to be helpful with clearing the water out. So we are taking it seriously, PennDOT's taking it seriously, and we're going to do everything that we can within our financial means to be
Right.
able to do our part. But it's also a state issue because it's a state road. I mean, so there's a lot of things that have to be done, but we are taking it seriously. We are working on it. There has been the meetings talking about what can be done and down there, and that's what they're looking with the Public Works to go out and take a look at the road and stuff.
Okay, all right, because there's representatives coming every month. So, okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Hi, my name is Haril Nagar from 108 Prince George, same waterside community. Just wanted to kind of ask in terms of priority where we are with that, because it is a big issue. My car cannot make it through at any point. I don't want to, God forbid, have an emergency call from my wife, and that's the only way, and me not be able to make it in time. And I understand, sir, that you had mentioned that you are working on that, but at this point, now, I would just like to know around what kind of a timeline can we expect to have this issue be remedied?
To give you a timeline would be, whatever I could give you wouldn't work. I mean, we need to find out exactly what we need to do, what engineering is going to need to be done. It's not going to be in a week. There's a lot of things that have to be done. As we're going along, we can let you know what the timelines are, what we're looking to do. I think the mayor got all your names and the people that came to the meeting and who's involved in it, and we'll keep you updated as to what's going on, but it's top priority. It's at the very top of the list to get this done because it's important for everybody down there. Because if you can't get down Station Avenue, you can't get the street road to State Road, it's a public safety issue, and that we're doing. And we have to do it ourselves because the state's not helping with it. So we are working hard to get this done, and we will continue to do this, and we'll have to get it straightened out together as mayor and council.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Mr. Black, can I just ask you one quick question too as well? What also might be helpful is getting our state rep involved to help push along PennDOT to some extent to help with that project down there, just because I know it's a state road.
The state representative and state senator are involved.
Great.
They're both involved, and they're both talking to PennDOT to see what more we can get out of PennDOT.
And we're willing to do more than our share, but I agree that PennDOT has to help.
Yeah, agreed.
It's going to have a permanent solution.
Go to who.
It's been going on for,
Maybe you guys could reach out to Governor Wolf
Yeah,
and see if he
yeah,
can give us some money. Yeah.
Hi, Barbara Zeidler, Zeidler, 1108 Ohio Avenue. I had one thing on my mind, and now I have two. First of all, I guess I've thought about this for quite a while. I've talked about it to a couple of you one-on-one, and item number 10 on the agenda made me think of it again. And I just want to ask, isn't there a way to put a proviso on when people come in and they have a piece of property that has standing buildings on it, and that's generating the taxes, and all of a sudden now they level it and they are paying taxes on an empty lot? Can't there be some kind of a restriction put on for how long they can let it sit as an empty lot before they build again? Because I know that this is going on all over the township. That's money coming out of the township's pocket and ultimately coming out of the taxpayer's pocket. When people buy a property and they're paying a couple $1,000s, and all of a sudden now they only have to pay a couple $100 because it's now an empty lot and stays that way for years. There needs to be some kind of a moratorium on how long it can sit that way before they do what they said they were going to do when they came in here to get approved. And I know there's one that's been years sitting right at Galloway and Mechanicsville that was torn down years ago, and it was a single home, and it was torn down, and there was supposed to be a couple of twin homes, but that there were going to either be 4 or 6 houses generating dollars. Now it's generating nothing and hasn't for a long time. There needs to be some kind of an addendum added to these approvals that say, it needs to be completed within X amount of time, whatever it is. It can sit empty for a year or 2 years, whatever. But at some point, it should either have to revert back to the taxes that was on that property when they bought it, or they need to proceed with what they're supposed to be doing. And again, that would bring the tax dollars back into the township. And that's been a problem for me, because I go past that particular property at least a half a dozen times a week. And there it sits, empty, generating nothing.
Well, I think that corner property, they're still paying taxes on it.
I'm sure, but they're paying taxes on an empty lot, not on a house.
No,
And there
they're
was a
paying-
house when they bought it.
Well, there's still a house.
I know the people that no, it's not, it's gone, and it's
not?
been
Well,
gone.
then, they were supposed to build behind there, it was supposed to go in a street.
They've built nothing.
I
They
know.
are now paying
But that was a
taxes
big
on an empty
project,
lot.
yeah.
And I know the woman who lived there, she raised 6 kids in that house.
Yeah.
She was a friend of my mother's, so they paid.
The one on Tennis Avenue was like a dilapidated commercial building.
Right.
It was the only commercial building. Like I said, it had a 5,000-gallon tank buried underground, which they had to remove.
Right.
And that took a lot to get that building.
I'm
where
sure,
it's-
but this
and the
was a
neighbors came out
single-family
happy
home,
with it.
and it's now a nothing.
Yeah, I know.
So
I don't
we're
know that-
losing money. Every year it sits that way, the township's losing money.
I don't know if we can do that.
Yeah, I don't know that we have the ability to do that, but it's something we'd have to check into.
It can't hurt to look into it.
We'll definitely look into it, but that's.
The other thing is, when Linda was up here speaking, it reminded me, I have a friend, if she hadn't given her address, I would have sworn she lived on the same street as my friend. She has been living next to a house that, first of all, has literally disappeared for the overgrowth in front of it. And this is on Colmar Avenue in Stanwood. It's a development. It's not some single home sitting off by itself. If you drive by with your car windows up, it smells like a litter box because they have 30 cats. The 30 cats are in the house. The people that own it, or whose parents owned it, are living in tents in the backyard. So I'll let you use your imagination as to what their bathroom facilities are. And
What's
there
the
are
address
people
of-
living on both sides of them that have to put up with this, and this has been going on for years.
What's the address of that property, do you know?
I can get it for you. I
Could you
don't
please?
remember the number
Complaint
offhand. I know
we'll
it's
send over.
Colmar Avenue, right in
Yeah,
Stanwood.
definitely, let's get the address and we can get out there and see what's going on, because,
It's, as far as I know, it's laying on some judge's desk in Doylestown for a couple of years, and nothing has happened.
Well, that's what happened.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I mean, my advice to my friend was, well, if all else fails, go protest your taxes, because your property is no longer worth what it used to be. If you hit them in the pocketbook, maybe they'll do something.
we had a property in Brookwood that had the same problem, and that got taken care of. The house ended up being taken, sold. They had to tear out every floor, every wall, everything, because it was just all urine soaked from cat urine, and they got it fixed up and repurposed. So there are things that can be done with that.
Well,
But-
the animal control officer, I guess it was, or the Humane Society, somebody came, took the cats, spayed them and brought them back because they claimed they were pets. So the cats are still all there, they just can't reproduce.
That would be something a judge would decide, but we had put a new ordinance in on the cat problem, because we have a big feral cat problem in Bensalem, and the reason we put the ordinance was to protect people from this. We have a lot of seniors that leave their garage door portion up, and they leave food in there, and all the cats go in. They're not fixed, they're not, they're out there urinating all over. We have
Right.
people that go out in the summertime, and they can't sit on their back deck because the smell is so bad, and that's why we put the ordinance out, so these things
I
can't
will
happen.
get that
So-
addressed to you.
Yes, if you could, please.
I will, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Debbie Towson, 123A, Hagan Drive, Bensalem. I just had a quick question. In the road closings on State Road, as I'm driving in either direction, I see signs for detour. Does that mean there's something going on, that they're detouring us around? Or is that just intermediate right now while the water's still laying there? Do you have any information on that?
There was an accident there this morning.
An accident.
No. These are signs that are actually in the ground, detour signs, just before Tennis Avenue. The road was closed. This was yesterday, the day before. And then, it must have been Monday when I was coming up from Delaware County. And then on the other side from the Chamonix Creek Park, there are signs that, say detour around where the water is.
Yeah, I'm not aware of what they are. We weren't advised of any detours, so we'll have to find out why the signs are up there, who put them there. Is it PennDOT? Is PennDOT
Right, that's
doing
what
something? Yeah.
right, that was, I was hoping that you would,
So Ron, can
that
we-
was maybe something that
Ron, can we
was
check into that tomorrow?
going on,
They
and,
usually notify us when they're doing that, but
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything.
Ron's going to check into it for us and
Okay.
get to us and let us know what's going on.
all right, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Alan Windsor, 3232 Azalea Avenue. I live on Old Lincoln Highway, and part of it's been shut down for a year now. I know it was supposed to be done by November, which, hello, we're there, and it's still not. And I walked down there today, and it's a big hole in the ground.
Is that where they were putting the gas
I
line?
asked, I don't know. They're putting a culvert in, supposedly, but it was shut down, and nobody worked there for like 3 months. And I tried to find out why, and I think they found something that they shouldn't have or something. And they won't tell me what the delay is or anything. And they're going to start working on Route 1. They've already started shutting down part of Route 1.
They had a meeting with the.
Well, no, the Route 1 work that's going on now is a separate project.
Right, but this is going to even impact things more
Sure, yeah,
because
it definitely
people use Old Lincoln Highway, and now they're cutting through Horizon Boulevard, and
Yep.
I don't know if you've been there lately, but you don't want to.
Ron, can we check into that and see what's going on down there on
On
Old Lincoln
Old Lincoln Highway, right at Rock Hill. And from what I understand, they're going to do all the culverts, and there's 3 of them on Old Lincoln Highway. There's one a little further up before you get to the retention basins, and then there's another one right by GMP that they're supposed to do, from what I understand.
What we can find out from them is a timetable, what they're looking to do to replace culverts or whatever they're going to do. It'll be good for us to know and you guys to know what's going on, so you know what's
Right.
happening. So we'll check into that too.
Now, with them closing down Route 1, this is even going to be worse. Yeah, it's right after you're coming off of,
Yeah, right after the entrance.
yeah.
Now, and sometimes, you can't never go, sometimes it's closed, but sometimes it's open, right?
The whole road's opened up now.
Yeah.
They came back and they
Yeah, yeah.
opened up the other half of it, which they could have let us use half of it, but,
Right.
I mean, it's just,
I don't know.
yeah. And then there were red light, the lights were still going when you come off of Horizon Boulevard, but now they're blinking red. So cars don't even think about slowing down, they just whip right out. It's a blinking red light, which is supposed to stop, and then, so it's absolutely ridiculous what's going on down there. I mean, they're not giving us any answers. Not that they have to, but
Oh, they have to.
But they have to give us
they have to give you answers. They don't have
They have
to
to give you answers too, but I mean, we have to find out we may not be able to make them go quicker,
Right.
unfortunately,
But at
but
least
we
get a
should tell
timeline.
them what they're doing and why is it taking so long.
Right.
There should be a reasonable explanation of what's going on.
And from what I understand, Route 1's going to be going on till 2021.
That's a big
Past.
project.
Yeah.
I understand it.
Far past 2021.
I hate to tell you too, that bridge near that Oakford's gonna be replaced or
Yeah, at Bristol Road.
Yep.
Yeah,
not gonna be good either.
yeah, that's not going to be pretty either. So if they're still working on on Old Lincoln Highway and
Nah,
close
that'll
down
be done by
Bristol,
then.
and they're
I
going to
think
have
that'll
Route 1,
Well, actually,
Yeah.
that bridge is the last part of that
That's the
project.
last part, right? Yeah, it'll
Okay.
be done.
But it's going to be better when it's all done. It'll
oh,
be-
sure.
It's
Yeah.
necessary, yeah.
All right, that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Alan. Do we have anyone else that would like to come forward? Seeing no one come forward, I'll close public comment. Other board business, Mr. Sloan, do you have anything?
I would just like to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Mr. Tuckmasian.
Just a couple items. One business item, previously I was given assurance that we would have that discussion point on the boards. So the ordinance change that he was submitting for some time now.
I thought the mayor responded with the application that they're using for those boards.
There's an application that they have to fill out with all their current information and things of that nature.
I don't know, but I never received that, and so I was under the assumption that we would still have it as a discussion point on the
Yeah,
agenda.
I thought it was in the packet and everybody got to see it, so I'll make sure that gets out, emailed to everybody
You didn't see the
tomorrow.
application?
Everybody's gotten it via email, I think, twice by now. last we spoke at
Yeah, I
Fall
read-
Festival, you
no, I
said you were
read-
going to add it to the agenda as a discussion topic.
I know, but I read,
And we didn't do it because they were designing the form. We could still have that discussion, that's not a problem with me, but the mayor put together a letter or a form with, giving
Okay.
all the information of the people, who they are, where they live, what they do.
and some of
Why
the
don't we
things,
include
some of the
that
things.
and his
I know, but some of the
recommendations
things,
as a discussion?
Yeah, but some of the
We can
things-
definitely do that.
Some things were addressed were in the packet. I mean,
We haven't seen
What
it.
packet?
We can, we'll take care of it. I'll get you a copy of the letter so you guys can see that and we'll set that up.
Okay.
I
But
did get your record.
As
I
far
did
as
get
some of
your,
the things that you
letter.
guys are asking
I read
for,
it.
background checks and things
Yeah,
of
some of
that
that stuff
nature.
I'm not,
I mean,
we can discuss it, but I'm
Well,
not.
That's fine, let's just have a discussion.
That's all we
Yeah,
want.
yeah, that's
put it
fine.
on the agenda.
And I know that, you know, that those are gonna go out to each person, that will give you a total breakdown of all their information, where they work, all that stuff to be able to be approved for that. I think once you see it, you'll see that a lot of it is what you were asking for, so, but I'll make sure that gets out tomorrow. All right, so you can take a look at that.
Thank you.
Just two other points. Veterans Day, so I just want to thank you to everyone for their service. And I know we have two vets up here on the board, including my father, so thank you for your sacrifice. And then the second point, I just want to say congratulations to the National Honor Society students here at Bensalem High School. I spoke, and it's just great to see how many students that we have that excel due to our great school system that we have here in Bensalem. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pizer, did you have anything? I'm sorry. No, we'll go back to that.
I'd rather not leave it, the discussion on Orchid Avenue where it was, with the suggestion that the township somehow fumbled or bumbled its way through this matter. The township went out, as you're all aware and have been advised, and cited the property owners. And when the property was not brought into compliance, the township went to court and secured an injunction. We filed for an injunction against the property owner, and we got an injunction against the property owner. And you'll recall from prior discussions when Ms. Snyder was at the microphone, that we got a court order. I believe all of you were provided with a copy of that order that said that they had to clean the property, that they were allowed to work on the property during daylight hours, and that they had to vacate the property when it was dark, that they couldn't be on the property after dark. Those were the judge's words, not ours, but that's the relief that he granted based on the actions that we took, we the township took, to address this problem. The property wasn't getting cleaned up. Ms. Snyder was making us aware of that. We're sending inspectors out, we're sending police out. Finally, we went and hired contractors to go out and clean the property. And that was done in furtherance of the court order. And when it was determined that they were living there after dark, we filed a contempt petition with the court to have that portion of the order enforced. And that's what Ms. Snyder and the township were up in court on Friday a week ago. We weren't up there to relitigate whether these people are violating the code and whether they have to live there with electric or, Judge, you entered an order that said they can't be here after dark. We've got Ms. Snyder here to testify. She was put on the stand to testify that those people are living there after dark. She testified to everything that she saw going on. Ms. Savage was there to provide the exact same testimony. The judge didn't care. The judge did not say, "Oh my goodness, you're in violation of my order." He did just the opposite. He took our lawyer, Mr. Marlier, to task. He took him to task and ran him through the ringer. Mr. Marlier, people in this county have lived without electric and water for years. That's what he said, isn't it, Ms. Snyder? Not that we weren't doing our job, that this judge was determined not to enforce the order that he had entered previously. Mr. Marlier, Ms. Savage, Have you done any, have you had an opportunity to inspect the work that this gentleman's testifying he did on the house? Your Honor, no. We didn't know he was doing work on the house because he hasn't applied for any permits. Again, in violation of what you told him to do. So the judge said, well, fine. I'm going to give them more time to get permits. And then, Ms. Savage, you go out and inspect the work they've done. This wasn't a case of us going up there ill-prepared for a hearing. We went up there exactly for the hearing we asked for. Judge, you entered an order, they're violating it, here's the proof, he didn't care. Now, there are any number of things we may need to do to rectify that situation, but it didn't occur because the township went up there unprepared for the hearing that it was faced with. And I don't want to leave this chamber this evening with the suggestion, as Ms. Snyder had said, that somehow Mr. Marlier and Ms. Savage somehow went up there not ready for something that we've been dealing with for months, if not years. As to the second matter that's been brought up, Colmore Avenue, I texted Mr. Marlier while I'm sitting here. He's telling me, and I can only go off what the lawyer's telling me, we got the cat people off the property. There are no tents, there are no cats. We removed the property, the removal from the property was completed, along with all trash and debris, house secured. Now, it may have come back, but complaints were made to the township, the mayor was made aware, he dispatched his people out to take care of it, and it was addressed. The tents were gone, the cats were gone. If they've come back subsequently, I don't know. I looked over to Mr. Neeran. Mr. Neeran's shaking his head. So if things have come back, and you may be dealing off of old information. You haven't been there in how long?
Well, it's been probably well over a month since
Okay, so again, the situation may still be there, the situation may have come back, but the township is addressing these issues.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Pizzo. I'm gonna set up a meeting with the mayor, and we'll talk about a few other
If the
things.
judge isn't going to listen to the woman next door who's testifying, he's questioning her, the neighbors are questioning her, we're questioning her, he doesn't care.
Are you gonna let me speak, Mr. Pizzo? Who is the judge?
Judge Mellon.
Can we ask for another judge if he's not going to do this and protect the people in our neighborhoods? Is this something we can do? If we're going to talk about it in public, then, I was hoping to talk about this tomorrow and figure out a schedule, but since we're doing...
Well, I couldn't leave here, and I apologize, but I couldn't leave here with Ms. Snyder suggesting that somehow the township had gone up there and screwed this all up.
Joe, I understand that, but I understand her frustration. I understand her frustrations also. So we need to get to the bottom of it, figure out how we're going to do it, and if it means requesting another judge that's going to hear it fairly, then that's what we need to do. But yelling at each other and getting angry isn't going to help the situation any. So I will work on it tomorrow with the mayor. Let's get the address, Barbara, for over there so I can take a look at it and make sure that that's going on, or Quentin can go double check it and make sure. We want to make sure that we don't have these problems. We got a lot on the plate to take care of, and we're going to take care of it. We work hard to try and keep this done, keep everybody safe. You can't always get everything done the minute you want to. We just give it a shot. Mr. Knowles, you have anything?
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I hope it's coming up, and glad everybody had a nice Veterans Day celebration. I do want to address that the record plan that we signed tonight, okay, that was a record plan that was approved on council September 17, 2018, just in 2000. It says the plans are the same as approved on council September 17. So all we were approving tonight was signing them and allowing them to be recorded. So prior to the meeting, I asked the solicitor, am I allowed to sign this prior to the meeting? And he said, if you're voting yes, then you can sign it. And if 3 people sign it that vote yes, then it's signed.
And the plans, unless they're approved, the plans don't go.
Right, so then, I don't appreciate the insinuation that I signed them because I don't want to stay after the meeting and do my job. But, you know, it is 10 of 11, but they're plans that were already approved at our last council meeting. And I was told that if 3 people don't vote yes, then 3 people wouldn't sign them. And if something happened, you know, I could go back. But if we feel that in the future, we want to sign these after the meeting, then I'll certainly stay after the meeting and do my job and sign them after the meeting. I just don't want people left with the impression that, you know, I'm refusing to do my job as a council person.
I agree 100%. If the solicitor says you can do it, the plan. If we said no, the plan the signed plan doesn't go up. But we're gonna do it the way that we always have done it. It'll be done after the approval. We're just gonna do it that way and not open the door for it. So,
Thank you.
but I agree with the accusation that it shouldn't have been made. But that's fine. You have anything else?
Everything's politics now.
Yeah. You have anything else? Joe?
It's not politics.
It is politics.
It's not politics.
No, it's doing your job.
It's it's not my job.
It's doing your job.
No,
You vote and you
I asked
sign.
my job. You're signing papers. Is that not doing your job?
It's 10 of, it's 10.
You're grandstanding
It's 10
and acting like you're the only one that's so self-righteous that's willing to stay after and do your job. Everybody else doesn't want to stay after.
If I hadn't
Except
brought
you.
it up, would we be considering doing this?
I was told by the solicitor that you can sign it before the meeting if you're voting yes. Now, is that correct or incorrect?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay, so it wasn't because I didn't want to do my job after the meeting. Okay, so if you want to sign it afterwards, so everybody, you know, it doesn't matter. We approved the plan. It's not a plan we're approving. It's signing a plan that we already approved.
Well, let's see. This agenda, which I believe is approved by Council President Polari, said that this is approval and signing of record plan. So it has
Approval
to
of
be
signing.
approved-
No, it says here.
Right, so
If you read-
we're
no,
approving,
no,
we're voting
no,
to approve
no.
that we sign it as a council.
We're approving, yeah, exactly. So it says, we are in receipt
Approve it
of one.
first and then sign.
No, we're not approving the plan, though. We're approving the signing. So you're leaving people with the impression that we're signing plans that weren't approved. That's not true.
What it comes down to.
You're purposely leaving people with that impression.
What it comes down to
You're
is that
smart enough to realize what you're doing.
if it wasn't voted, if there weren't 3 votes to pass it,
Then
the
3
signed
people wouldn't sign
The
it.
signed plan would not go up, would not be approved and would not go to Doylestown. So all it's doing is taking it, making it a little
And
bit
if
easier.
you think it's better that we sign it afterwards, if the solicitor agrees, I'll stay after, we'll sign it afterwards. I have purposely I have no problem doing that, but to insinuate that it's because, in a self-righteous way, that because we don't want to do our job properly is uncalled for.
You done now?
I'm done, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Kisselback. Okay.
Nothing, Mr., I had things to say, but I'm just going to say happy Thanksgiving.
And I'll say that also. Our next meeting is 11/26. Have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.